This time I'm going to call to order the school board meeting. It is Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. All board members are present except for Margot Bellamy, who will be joining us on the phone. She's actually at a school conference in Washington, D.C. on equity. So thank you, Margot. At this time, Mr. Donnelly, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board is honored to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional land of the Dena'ina people, both past and present. And it's with gratitude that we honor the land itself and the people who have cared for it throughout our generations. We want to welcome you to our meeting and thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and this board. The mission of the Anchorage School District is educating all students for success in life. And now I'd like to turn the mic over to our student representative for her opening statement.
On behalf of the school board, we would like to thank students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talent, and your tax dollars. If you are unable to be physically present for the entire meeting, you may choose to tune into the Anchorage School District YouTube channel to watch the live stream. Recordings of meetings are also available through the agenda and board docs. My name is Sophia Maria Holder, and I am the student representative to the board. I was elected to serve through the ASD Student Advisory Board. Although my votes are advisory only, I offer a student voice to this body.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Is there any dissension with the agenda as presented? Seeing no dissension, I move that we accept the agenda. So this is our time to focus on staff, students, and community, and let's do it.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending tonight's meeting. And the first part of the meeting is, as the board president said, a focus on staff and students. And my name is Dina Bishop, the superintendent. And this part of the meeting occurred about 3 years ago when the board wanted to take time from their meetings to really celebrate the people who make ASD great. And those people are our students, our community, our staff, parents, all people associated with ASD make ASD great, just like Tony the Tiger says. So the first thing we had is really our mid-year retirees. We had 5 retirees with over 25 years of service, and we wanted to just share that generally we do a mid-year celebration, but all of our retirees notified us that they retired mid-year so they could leave in the winter. And they certainly, the weather has made that imperative this year. Now that we're having a heat wave today. So just wanted to share the names. These are employees that worked for ASD and retired mid-year. We'll also do a celebration of retirees that provided 25 years or more of excellent service to ASD over their time working with us, and that will occur in May. So for our first focus on staff and students, would Principal Dr. McGinley please come forward? And the members of the Anchorage International Rotary, please come forward with them. So, thank you, gentlemen. We are here to celebrate the Anchorage International Rotary for their generosity and long-lasting commitment to helping students through their annual King Tech High Pie Auction. And I want to let you know that the name is deceiving because there's more than pies there. There's lots of cakes and everything else and other stuff. So it's awesome. This is the 25th year for the pie auction, which has raised over $375,000. All the money raised at this event goes to King Tech students in form of scholarships. Typically, there are 9 or 10 $1,500 scholarships given out each year, which help the college, vocational tech training, or for students entering a union. Thank you for making a difference in the lives of the students of ASD. Your efforts make ASD great. So with that, we have a little tradition that we like our guests to maybe share a word. And of course, Dr. McGinley will follow up with some words as well. So if you want to introduce yourself and just share your thoughts.
Well, thank you. My name is Boyd Morgenthaler. I'm the chairman of the Anchorage International Rotary Club Memorial Scholarship Fund. And with me is the secretary of our fund, Mr. Tim Trueblood. The joy that we get out of Rotary is the recognition of all worthy vocations. In an ideal Rotary Club, there are no two people of the same vocation. And so when we go to give scholarships, we are looking for people who have different interests. We're not looking for necessarily for the top scholar to go to MIT. We're looking for somebody that wants to become a chef and go to UAA, or become an air traffic controller. We have a wide range of people. So we appreciate the opportunity to serve, and we very much appreciate King Tech High School and King Career Center before that. We believe that they are probably the best kept secrets in the entire school district, and we would encourage the board to make more of them.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to be a part of the 25-year commemorative celebration. And one of the things we put together was a 25-year anniversary dessert recipe book. And these are this is a collection of all of the baked goods that have been produced in the 25 years, captured in this recipe book. And it involved Charlie Lochner and his advertising class, Matt Sagita, who typed up the text, and he's our business technology teacher. Pam Butcher in the print shop put this nice produced print together. And then Kira McKinsey, she was a student who helped put this together as well. And so it looks like we could guesstimate 250 students benefited from the hard work of the International Rotary Club. And every year when this happens, this is my third year as part of this, it's almost like getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner in-house. There's a lot of running around and a lot of work that goes into it. The students get inspired by it. And then now we're coming up on the transformational process when we start offering the scholarships. And Miss Gabi Belts, who is my AA, does a lot of work readying the students to sit for the interviews to earn the scholarships. So it's a well-done process. We enjoy doing it, and we hope that this continues for many, many more years. And thanks again.
Thank you.
A picture? And now, would the Service High School boys swim and dive team please come forward with their principal, Mr. Frank Hauser. Dun, 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 dun. Gentlemen, they're in the back. Ladies and gentlemen, the Service Cougar boys are the 2019 swim and dive state champions. Woo! Yeah, 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 yeah. This repeat as state champions was a strong team effort, winning first place in 8 of 10 events and scoring in several others. Led by juniors, Brian Jarapakorn. Where's that? It was John. Oh, sorry about your name if I mispronounced it. But awesome, Brian to my left, and Nick Price and Tabner Wisdom, who each won 2 events at the meet. The Cougars were pushed hard and responded under pressure. All finalists contributed to the victory. One less swim and the result would have been different. Service needed to win the last 4 events, including 2 relays, to claim victory, and did so with supreme effort. The Cougar boys also won the State Meet Sportsmanship Award, voted on by their peers for supporting their teammates and competitors alike on their way to the title. Principal Frank Hauser said, "Hard work and great attitudes go a long way in this sport. This year, it led to the title and a meet they will soon forget. Congratulations on your victory. They won't soon forget. Congratulations on your victory. You make ASD great." And I just want to let you know that your principal is a fellow swimmer, true? Yeah, and he was on the Palmer High School swim team. So he kind of, many years ago, looks just like yesterday, like these gentlemen. So, gentlemen, congratulations. And we would like to know your grade, your name, and perhaps the event or some other kind of inspirational thing you would like to share with these folks about why you did it and how you did it, maybe.
My name is Brian Rubicorn. I'm in 11th grade. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to win.
Enough said. Mic drop.
My name is Nick Price. I'm a junior, and I was really proud of how hard we worked this year, and I can't wait to see if we can win it again next year.
My name is Gavin Kitchen. I'm a freshman, and I'm really looking forward to winning again next year.
My name's Tabner Wisdom. I'm a junior, and I just had faith in my coaches and my teammates, and we all pulled through. So.
Hi, my name is Ethan Kwan. I am a senior, and I'm glad I could end my last year with a win.
Hi, my name's Ethan Bartz. I'm also a senior. I'm just proud of our team pulling together and winning in my senior year. It's a good way to go out.
I am Coach Grant, assistant, and it was just awesome and inspirational watching these young men rise up and having a tremendous amount of pressure under them and how to perform under that pressure, true life skills. So,
my name is Ben Kitchen. I'm the head coach, and it's just an awesome group. It doesn't represent our whole team, but these are the guys that scored at state, and it took the whole team to bring these guys here and to the title. So we were very excited, and the lesson that we learned was hard work does pay off. So these are very good guys.
I guess I'm the proud principal of the swimmers, and the only thing, they've said it all, but I think I would just like to iterate. They really are not only amazing swimmers in the pool, but they are amazing young men in the school as well. So they really set a great example for other students at the school to strive, shoot for the best, and really put the hard work and effort and prove to not only themselves that they can do it. And I'm just really proud of them. And thank you guys very much. Congratulations.
We want to take a picture with you, but we'll go over here on the stage, and we want you to help us, audience. Service High Cougars, thank you for making ASD great. All right.
Coaches didn't get the memo, I think, about the hair.
That's true.
And our last focus on staff and students this evening is the counterpart of the boys' state winning team. Would Principal Tina Johnson-Harris please come forward? We weren't sure that the Diamond High Link swim team could make it tonight because they are in the pool right now, swimming club. That is the reason probably why they win state all the time. Because in the off season, they're competing still. So Principal Johnson-Harris is here to accept the recognition. But I do want to let you know that the Lady Lynx are the 2019 Girls Swim and Dive Champions. This is their, this is their 5th consecutive state championship. Congratulations. Woo! And I want to let you know to watch out for next year because this young team had only 2 graduating seniors, and like I said, the rest are all in the pool. The Diamond Girls had many strong finishes at the state meet, and Jenna Walsh broke the school record in the diving. Head coach Scott O'Brien said, after a rough start to the season, our girls came together as a single unit to strive for the team's goal as state champions. Their ability to stick together and be there for each other was astonishing. Congratulations to the Lady Lynx. Your hard work and dedication paid off. You make ASD great, and you have great team swimsuits.
You want to say something? Oh, sure. So Scott's probably coaching because he does that on the side as well. The girls, I have to say, are probably working on their academics. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that, yes, we did start rough. There was some controversy, but the girls rallied together and they stayed focused and determined. And I think it's bittersweet that even though they started on a rough note, they ended on a high one. So thank you to the superintendent, secondary, all ASD, the board for supporting the girls. We appreciate it.
And something to note, if you followed this story, the High School Sports Association, USA Swim, that runs the Olympics, didn't agree with the call that was made by USA Swim and USA, or the National High School, and the National High School reached out to our district to give input on their new rules, and they are considering adoption of the new rules that ASA at the state level have to ensure that young women and young men compete in the pool for their talents and not the way they look.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for making ASD great. We'll get back with our meeting.
So moving forward, we're going to get reports, and I just happened to see Lieutenant Colonel Dainty here. Would you like to come forward, sir? You're just very recognizable.
Okay, there we go. Okay, well, good evening. Glad to be here. I've got a couple things I just want to kind of talk about, things that we're doing on JBEAR. Tomorrow, actually, we're going to be meeting with all of the principals at the JBEAR schools. We do this quarterly just to talk about issues, things that we can maybe help them with, or also look for opportunities where we can involve some of the base facilities, some of the morale, welfare, recreation activities on the base. So we'll be doing that tomorrow, meeting with them in the afternoon. Recently, in the past couple months, we've been having some issues with the Muldoon gate. You know, that reopened, they put in a new gate there. Some of those lanes, some of the gates were a little bit tight, and some of the buses were having a difficult time transiting through that gate. So they're having to turn around, go around to Boniface. It was adding a lot of time and some complication. So what we did was we talked to the Security Forces Squadron and figured out, hey, can we open those gates at certain times to let the buses through? So that was something we were able to fix. So now, from what I understand, the buses are getting through that gate pretty well, and we haven't had a lot of those issues. Sometimes a defender will show up to the gate and they'll forget to open it or something like that. But for the most part, I think we've been able to fix that. So that was kind of a win, I think, for all of us to get those buses on time, get the kids picked up so they're not waiting out in the cold or their parents aren't wondering where they are. So I think that was kind of a win in the past couple weeks. We also, kind of as an artifact of that, myself and the school liaisons went and met with the transportation team just to talk about the bus routes, the gates, if they had any other issues that we could kind of address. So that was good to kind of understand more how the buses work, and that was an educational experience for me to be better knowledgeable on that. Also, what the school liaisons have done is they've added the transportation team to our JBEAR kind of notification, automatic notification system. So if gates are closed, if there's school closures or base closures, this is an automatic message that goes out. So we're trying to get their information into that system so that they also get that note, that message, and they'll be able to plan accordingly. We also showed them the JBEAR Connect app, which is a great app. You just go download it for free, and it gives you gate hours, if the gate's open or closed, and a lot of other good, important base information. So the JBEAR Connect app should be a helpful tool for them as well. Going way back in time to early December, Dr. Bishop, you were able to come out and visit the Arctic Spark Innovation Lab on the base. Hopefully you got to meet a lot of those excited airmen that were just, I mean, they're full of innovation and creativity. They've done amazing things. They've got patents, things that have gone all the way up to the Air Force level. So when they heard that you were interested in developing a curriculum for a STEM program, they were excited to kind of get involved with that. So there's 2 airmen who are kind of planning, they're talking about it, and they'd like to reach out and maybe contact you later this month or maybe in March just to see how they can help come up with the curriculum and plan and be involved with that. So that's pretty neat. We've also been looking at the Visit Our Schools month. We've been trying to do some advertising on JBEAR through social media, a lot of the different Facebook pages, just to get that out as we have new families coming in, or perhaps families that have younger kids that are about to put them in schools, just to get that out to the masses so they know they can come out and tour the schools and kind of help them make their decisions. Colonel Carant and I would like to take advantage of those too. It's right at the same time as our staff meeting, but maybe we can break out and get some of those, or go on the one Thursday in the evening to try to visit some of the schools where a lot of our military kids go. So that's a great opportunity we're trying to put out there. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was we got some questions about the Real ID Act that's going to be implemented in October. Some questions about, well, how's that going to affect our base access? So right now, for folks who are trying to get on with base access, the regular Alaska license works. That's perfectly fine. But as of 1 October, you will need to have that Real ID compliant driver's license. So that's something, I know it's way off in the future, but something to think about just as you're planning, especially with the teachers and substitutes and whoever's going to need base access. You will need that Real ID compliant driver's license or ID starting on 1 October. So that's kind of a quick whitewash of a lot of things there. So if you have any questions, I'm willing to try to answer those.
I don't see any questions, but I'm going to download the JBEAR Connect because that'll be helpful for me too.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah,
and I didn't know that was out there, so thank you.
Certainly,
thank you. Yeah.
And especially as we have the air show coming up in July, that'll probably be another tool we get information out to. So definitely
sounds good. Well, thank you as always. I'd love to have you here. We'll see you next time, and you don't have to wait for an invitation. You can visit our schools anytime.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's going to be the Thunderbirds will be coming up again.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
appreciate
sir. Okay, with that, our student advisory board.
At our last student advisory board meeting, we mainly spoke about ABOS, which stands for Anchorage Battle of School Spirit. And at that point, we confirmed that the charity we're going to be raising money for during that event is the Covenant House. So.
Okay, great. Governance?
We have not met since the last. We have not met since the last meeting.
Okay. And your meeting when again, Mr. Holloman?
That would be a week from tonight at 4 p.m.
Okay. And communications. Ms. Bellamy is not here, but they again will be meeting the same time you will before, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, she's on the line. I forgot, Margot. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
You have anything to report?
We have not met. Communications committee have not met since our last meeting. We will proceed the governance meeting on February 11th at 3 o'clock.
Okay, great. And our finance committee meeting?
Finance has not met since our last meeting as well, just in lieu of doing all of the budget stuff at our work sessions and public meetings. We'll see if we need one on the 18th as we get closer to it.
Okay. And at this time, is there any other meetings or reports that any board member wants to share at this time? If not, okay. We did receive a letter from Local 71, Public Employees Local 71. This letter is to serve as notice that it is Public Employees Local 71, the union, intent to request to meet with you and your negotiation team. This request is to keep in compliance with the current CBA, Article 17, Section 1, between the Anchorage School District and the ASD and the union. And this is in response to this letter satisfies the board policy 4143, 4243, negotiations and consultation. Negotiations with any currently recognized bargaining unit will begin after the designated agent of the unit notifies the school board in a regular school board meeting of the unit's intent to begin bargaining, and the school board has directed the superintendent to begin bargaining, as we are doing now. Thank you. So with that, we have goal monitoring, which is something new that we're going to be doing. And our goal monitoring, this topic is going to be chronic absenteeism. Dr. Bishop?
Thank you, Madam President. We do have some data to share in regard to goal monitoring, or the outcomes. One of the outcomes for the Anchorage School District and Destination 2020 is attendance. And in that attendance, we want to increase student attendance, of course, and decrease chronic absenteeism. And I will share the definition for chronic absenteeism as we move forward. So in our output, some data monitoring, and these data were captured from our website, our data dashboard. But chronic absenteeism is a student being absent more than or greater than 10% of the school days. And there are 170 school days. And so a student who is absent more than 17 days would fall into this category. And this demonstrates entire years of the past 3 years. This year's data was not included as we haven't completed the year, just so that we have a trend so that you can determine what it is. After the 16-17 school year, we did put in some protocols and administrative regulation. We have some updates to that still to bring to governance, but we put in a provision to actually have attendance at the elementary school twice a day. We used to adjust so that we have a morning and afternoon attendance for half days at elementary, and of course secondary schools do it period by period. Just to let you know, the district's overall attendance rate has been and continues to be above 90%. The attendance rate last year alone was 93%. The percentage of students attending at least 90% of the days of school, though, falls between 75 and 80%. So while the overall attendance rate reported to the state is 93, when the goals were established back in, I believe, 2011, the actual metric for that was the number of students who are at least here 90% of the time. But in contrast, chronic absenteeism increases in our district. In elementary school, the rate is 21%, and in high schools, it's 28%. So we do know that a student that creates a habit of being absent, it just continues. And we all know that generally in elementary school, although we can talk about kids, missing or skipping, that's really not the issue. The primary issue is a routine of coming to school. This isn't just a school-based issue. This is not a classroom issue. Of course, learning is impeded, and we'll share some of our data around that. But this is really a culture and expectation. It's part home, part school, and we try to do things to encourage it and to teach about how important attending every day is, and our data demonstrate that it is. So we just took math achievement, and this is from the math growth test, but it is strictly just achievement, not growth. So it doesn't show the difference from the beginning to end. It's the end of the year summative achievement of students in grades 3 through 5th and 6th. 5th and 6th would be if it's in the elementary school, 3 through 5, 6. And if you take a look, the green section are students who are attending 95 to 100% of the time, 90 to 95. Those are some of the goals. The orange or reddish section are really fall below what we'd like to see. And all the way on the left-hand side of that chart are the percentage of the days attended by percent to share the number of students in the categories over the last 2 years. We have just these 2 years of data because we have MAP data that we matched student with their math score. The amounts and the totals are, of course, different because it would depend on if the child took the math test that day or the reading test. We don't make these up all the time, so it is just what they showed us that day of schooling. And as you can see, the average percentile of students' achievement, and these are national percentile, not just within our district, definitely is higher when kids are in school. We shouldn't be surprised by that. It's true in reading, and it falls true in elementary as well. Looking at middle schools, we've taken 17, 18, and 19 because we had a higher percentage of students those years in the assessment. Again, the percentage of days attended over on the left, both for reading and math over the years. The number of students in each category, as well as what percent those students make up and their average percentile in achievement. So at the end of the year, what was their achievement after learning that year? So it's a one-time assessment there. And it falls true. The more you're in school, the more you attend, it makes sense that the more you learn. And actually the book Outliers demonstrates that as well, that when you attend to something, you get good at it. When kids attend school, they get good at learning. They learn. Next, we have high schools. And in high schools, we don't have MAP data all the way up. We do have MAP data for freshmen, but we wanted to share that the high school GPA is also highly correlated or relational to a student's attendance. And you can see in those categories, it is very steady over the years, what happens. The next slide that actually shows graduation rate shows some promise in the work that we're doing with students to not drop out. We're making some progress here in the students in the very lowest quartile. So these are our students, the number of dropped out and what category of attendance they fell in. And if you can see, our students who don't attend drop out at significantly higher rates than students who have different attendance. So, and that's the number of dropouts according to the number enrolled at that same time when the data was captured. All right, and now we might ask, whom are in these different categories? And so we wanted to share that the absent rate of K-12, and this is for last year, where the total was 23%. So that's almost 1 in 4 students who are chronically absent. And who are the kids? And again, the percentages that you see are the percentages in that student group. So of the students who are in the African American student group, 1 out of 4 of them has chronic absence. Alaska Native, it's 39%. You can see these are the children in the different, these are our kids, these are ASD. And as you can see, it's for kids who are chronically absent, we have a high percentage of kids, almost 1 in 4. So absences occur, but chronic absence really is detrimental to students' progress. Some of the things and the inputs that we're doing to really focus on this and at the school level. And again, I'm sharing the work that is done by community groups, PTAs, teachers, schools, coaches, to really encourage attendance. But again, the work cannot be schools alone and educators alone. But just to give the board a mind's eye of the many inputs for which schools work, phone calls, home visits, parent nights. They've made videos on informational segments about how attendance in school is related to success. We celebrate when kids have attendance. We also have contests, which are fun, offer incentive for kids. They set goals. They try to get goals. They're published, you know, as you walk down a hallway in a school. They have different mottos they follow. In one school, they have like bands. They don't want kids to get any more than 10. So they'll say 8 is great, 9 is fine, but I forget what it is for 10, but you don't want 10 absences. And they really try to strive for no more than 10 in a year. And if you think kids are in school 9 months and more than 17 days is significant. Even at 10, it's at least one absence a month. So just to share again, some of the contests. These are fun ones, just so you know, and they announce them. The principals have a really good rivalry going on. The best improvement for a month gets the silver yardstick, and the golden shovel goes to the school with the best attendance rate. And they actually share that here and cheer for each other because of the work, just to have a little fun with it, because this is a large part of our outcomes. It's demonstrated very significantly that there is a relationship between being in school and student learning. Attendance matters, every student, every day. And that's today's goal monitoring.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Were there any board comments or questions? Ms. Hildy.
I just have one. The Alaska Native and Pacific Islander, they're significantly above the, about 1 in 4 average district-wide. Is I guess maybe speak on some of the targets for that population?
Sure, I would. If there is information from the folks that work with schools, we can provide that, or we can provide that in a board connect about specifically. Yeah, we'll provide that with some of the work.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I think mine's on, yeah. So at this time, we're going to open public testimony on, where's my agenda? On non-action items, and the board welcomes public comment on non-agenda and non-action items. We value public comment as it ensures that we remain aware of public thoughts, ideas, and concerns, and informs our decision-making process. There is a 1-hour time slot at the beginning of the meeting. Testimony in excess of 1 hour will be heard at the end of the meeting or may be submitted in writing. We have a table front and center and microphones available for testimony when I call your name. You will have 3 minutes to testify, and you may begin speaking when the timer appears on the screen in front of you and begins the countdown. When you have 30 seconds left, the number will turn yellow, and when the timer reaches 0, please finish your sentence. In order to provide equity to all who would like to speak, the board asks that there be no clapping after testimony, as it may intimidate others wishing to testify with opposing opinions. Additionally, it's not a practice that board members answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. This is your time to speak and our time to listen. The board will consider all information shared by the public, and when deemed necessary, issues raised in testimony will be referred to administration for follow-up. And at this time, I have one person signed up, and that is Steve Atwater.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Bishop, good evening. My name is Steve Atwater. I'm the Executive Dean of the Alaska College of Education at UAS. I'm here this evening to say thank you and to share a recent ASD development with the College of Education. As you well know, the most important stage of a teacher preparation is the internship, or what we used to call student teaching. Working with a host teacher for a semester or a year offers the intern a chance to experience the responsibility of being in charge of a classroom and to also learn from the host teacher. Here in Anchorage School District, UA has dozens of interns in your schools, and I want to thank ASD teachers who have volunteered to host a UA intern. If any of you are in the room or listening right now, thank you for giving back to your profession. We really appreciate that. Thank you also to your HR department for the placement process. It goes very smoothly, and to your administration for including the interns as they can with district training and business. I'm pleased that many of the UA interns in ASD are hired by your district principals soon after they graduate. Next, I'd like to thank your district's administration for the positive working relationship I have with them. We are regularly trying to improve our programs at UA to ensure that they are hitting the mark, and we are doing all we can to prepare teachers and principals. Thank you to the ASD administrators for their feedback on these efforts. It's invaluable to us. I want to share that the Alaska College has been working closely with your district special education department to increase the number of licensure candidates in special ed. As part of this, UAS will be revising course sequences and delivery modes. This includes offering courses this summer here in Anchorage. Thanks to Cindy Anderson and her department for working so closely with us to make this partnership happen. And then finally, the bad news is that enrollment in teacher preparation across the country and here in Alaska at UA is going down. In the past 10 years, it's down almost 30%. And so we're reflected what's happening at UA across the country. So it's a difficult time for us as a school district. It's a difficult time recruiting teachers. All of us need to work to reverse this trend and can help do so by celebrating the teaching profession. In doing so, the social esteem of teaching will be increased. That will in turn help more people decide to become teachers. So thanks for everything you're doing to help with that. I know you celebrate teachers all the time, but for us as a society, it's critical that we do everything we can to bolster teaching so that we have more people going into it. Because right now, as you well know, the trend is going the wrong way, and it's going to become difficult, more and more difficult, to bring people into the teaching profession. So with that, I'm just here to say thank you and have a good meeting.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on non-action items? Okay, with that, we will move on to the superintendent's update.
I do have a brief update for you. All right, so it's all good things. Junior achievement. Wanted to share this in relation to just the work that the board looks to in the future to ensure financial literacy. That's one thing that we did find out in our community groups and our surveys from more so from kids than actually from others in our community, that they wanted to know adult things. And when we asked them what that meant, adulting, they said, you know, like money and stuff. So kids definitely want to know about that. And we do understand that the largest portion of debt growing in America is student debt, over $3 trillion. So we want kids in ASD to understand money and finances. And so one of our close partnerships is with Junior Achievement, and we're looking and working with them to try to build capacity. The next slide, which was stuck in here after this was made, was I did receive an award by Junior Achievement, so thank you. We can move on with that one. Thank you. Yeah. Staff got that one in there. But these are really fun, these BP Educator Awards. As you know, we've had BP teachers over many, many years, and with the transition from BP to Hillcorp, BP this year celebrated education and teachers with grants, classroom grants. And 3 of our schools received them, all in different categories, and we're just so proud of them. On January 24th at the Denina Center, the awards were given, and they, again, were from $2,000 to $10,000, and here they are. The first one is Bowman Elementary School, and they received $4,000 for their STEM work, or $7,000 rather for, oops, the check says 7 and the top says 4. I think we just used the same title, so sorry about that. $7,000, just read the check. I need some financial literacy myself. So $7,000, which was excellent to just do engaging work in STEM with their students. And the $4,000 actually went to Eagle River High School, and there's the principal, and I boy, the particular teacher had the project. I'll have to update the board on what that was. It was more STEM, of course, because they support science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And it was a real treat to have Janet Weiss, the CEO and president for Alaska, there to celebrate. And finally, the big award went to Diamond High School, and $10,000 to Josh Hall, Leah Boughton, Laurel Strutzer, and Julie Romo, and Jennifer Childress. Jeff Keller is there, and of course the BP staff. So they had one of the coveted 3 $10,000 awards that went out to schools in Alaska. But certainly ASD was well represented. We celebrated. BP had a nice show, and I just want to congratulate those schools. And of course, the many, many years of BP educators that have really brought excellence to ASD classrooms. Yay! Yeah, they are good. And Visit Our Schools Month is up and coming, and we are advertising about learning about our schools. We encourage folks to come in, visit, see schools, engage with schools, and we're just looking forward to that. And wanted to share some information about the budget communication. As you know, earlier today, we reviewed the preliminary budget and had a work session on the budget. In addition to the prior meetings and the input and things like that from discussions, we will continue to work on this, but wanted to share with the board that it was made public and posted yesterday. We were finishing up the remaining discussions on that actually yesterday morning before it was posted, and provided just right now on Hot Topics page for all the information for the public to review is there. We will review in general leadership as well as have Zoom sessions as needed. Small groups and Jim and Andy as well as administration will go out to schools as needed. But we did send a letter alerting everyone that the budget was out and online today, just to share that information. It is another year of declining revenue and facing that and the difficult decisions being made. So wanted to be sure that folks were informed of that. And that is the update that I have. Thank you.
I move to approve the consent agenda, ASD Memorandum Number 082 Personnel Report, and November 19, 2019 Executive Session Minutes.
Second.
Board members, please vote. And that motion carries with 7 yeas.
I move to approve the expulsion of the student associated with ASD incident number 1313152 as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Board members, please vote. And that motion carries unanimously with 7 yeas. So at this time, we are going to be introducing our action items. And before I do that, I want to go over the procedures for agenda item testimony as follows. An action item memo is first introduced by the Vice President. If seconded by another board member, I will open the floor for public testimony. If you have signed up in advance or indicated you are interested in providing testimony, I will call you to come to the front table to speak. You will have 3 minutes to talk, and you will see a timer on the screen in front of you to monitor the time remaining and inform you of when you need to conclude. After all testimony closes, I will open the floor for board discussion, followed by the student board representative vote before finally calling for the official vote. And the voting results will be on the screen to my right.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 056 and authorize the superintendent to award a contract for the Homestead Elementary School roof replacement project to Eklutna Construction and Maintenance LLC for a total award amount of $3,016,962. The total contract award includes the base bid amount of $2,882,869 and a total Siemens allowance of $134,093.
Second.
Is there any testimony on Memorandum 056? Seeing no public testimony, is there any board discussion? Seeing no, oh, okay, Ms. Mitchell.
So I'm just curious with these contracts that we're issuing now, are they, I didn't know what job order contractors was. I just am curious about that. And I'm also wondering are these now being sourced with the apprenticeship policy in place or not?
Madam President, may I ask staff to respond?
Certainly.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Roth, can you share input?
Through the president to Member Mitchell. So this contract is being let under the current board policy. And if you can repeat, I'm not quite sure I understood the first part of your question.
In the memo, it says that, I just was curious about this term, that the company that this was issued to is currently one of 2 job order contractors.
So through the president, that is correct. That Eklutna, if just to refresh your memory, Eklutna was one of the contractors that assisted the district under job order contract in the aftermath of the earthquake. But this is separate from, they had to participate in a competitive bid process, and Eklutna was in fact the low bidder on this specific project.
Okay. All right. Student vote, please.
Yes.
Board members, please vote. Okay, and that Memorandum 056 passes unanimously with 7 yeas.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 090, the first reading of the fiscal year 2020 through 2021 preliminary budget, and authorize an upper limit spending authority of $875,820,165.
Second.
Okay, at this time, I do have individuals that are signed up to speak on Memorandum 900, and the first one I have is Jeff Mayfield and Lucas Mayfield. If you could come up front, please.
Lucas, you're going to sit right over here. I'll go first, okay? Okay. Okay. Has my timer started yet?
Right down here. If you
Okay, cool. Dear ladies and gentlemen of the school board and Superintendent Dr. Dina Bishop, thank you guys for having me here. I had a question for you guys. Do you know what makes ASD great? Part of what makes ASD great is the Ignite program that my son here is in. With this new budget, I know that we are in a tough time, but this new budget is going to be removing the Ignite program as we know it from our schools. There's a positive impact proven on both academic achievement and socioeconomic development, socio-emotional development in children who attend K-12 gifted programs. In the link that I sent you guys, it's that paper is in there. The impact is akin to the impact gained from students taking art, music, shop, and sports. I would not argue that any of these services should be lost, but I do argue that all of these services are intertwined and essential for certain students. All of these programs serve the purpose of helping kids who could otherwise be known as at risk reach their full potential. Similar to students who qualify for IEP plans, gifted students also learn in a different way that needs to be addressed. I understand the place that you're in as far as budgeting and planning goes. We're forced to make hard decisions based on a budget that is yet unknown on a state level. We as a district are focused on helping those that are lagging behind, and that's good. But I fear that in doing so, we will be perpetuating a loss of interest in school from kids who are excelling. We would be robbing Peter to pay Paul. If it honestly feels like the highly qualified students of Ignite are being punished in order to focus attention elsewhere and achieve some magic score on standardized tests in order to satisfy our legislature and our governor. Having Ignite teachers become WIN consultants is not enough. These type of students need large periods of time uninterrupted to explore complex concepts and ideas. My child's classroom has many students with extreme behavior. The class is exceptionally distracting, but some students have gotten into Ignite. My son tells me that it's his only time of peaceful work all week long. He looks forward to it every week. He'll be in class with these kids for the next 3 years, and he won't get a peaceful time if this bill passes or if this budget passes. We won't have Ignite to look forward to. What do you think will become of students like him, and where will they go? How will this affect classroom behavior? I know I've only got 30 seconds left. I had some students write some notes to me today about Ignite and the program that they're in. One student says that it makes her sad to think that they're shutting down the Ignite program, that she wants these opportunities for other kids. And another student tells me that, let me see if I can get it up. She enjoys math and science, and she doesn't get that challenge in her normal classrooms. Also, I just wanted to go back to a slide that Dr. Bishop had pulled up just a minute ago in closing, and it says attendance matters. I'm going to exchange attendance for Ignite. Ignite impacts achievement. Ignite impacts graduation rate. Ignite impacts dropout rate. And Ignite impacts success in life. Go ahead, Lucas.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Lucas, and I go to Ignite. I don't think that Ignite should be eliminated from our school. It expands our minds and it challenges us in ways that our regular classes couldn't. I feel right now it feels right to have Ignite in the school and have people be a part of it. It is fun and interesting. It gives us a break from the normal chaos in our class. I look forward to it every week when it means that I have to make up regular classwork. I feel like our Ignite teacher is also a mentor to me and everyone in the program. I don't think that win time is a good place for Ignite because we need longer periods of time to learn tasks that help our mind grow better than win. Our school district would not be the same without Ignite. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Lucas. That was a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
If I could have Jesse Melnor and Pat Bourgeon. And Jesse, you'll go first.
Thanks. Hey, Pat. Oh, good to see you. All right, in the hot seat. Or you guys in the hot seat. Which one is it? Ladies and gentlemen of the board, thank you for the opportunity today to talk to you. I have 3 kids in Polaris K-12 alternative school. Our school is not without its problems, whether it be the gentleman who stole a construction vehicle out of our parking lot and drove it into our school pond, the numerous occasions of thievery and dumping stolen items, people breaking into our storage sheds and living in them. Let that one sink in. Our security guard has retrieved multiple knives, drugs, needles, and other materials left in the field by the local transient camps. A few months ago, somebody set our recycling shed on fire. So when I hear that the security position from our school is going to be cut, I was pretty shocked. I will appeal to you using facts found on your website. First is our elementary schools within the district do not have security guards. However, the majority, if not all, of these buildings are secure with a buzz-in system. Polaris is open for all to enter, leaving our kids vulnerable. Middle schools in the district have 2 populations comparable to Polaris. Both schools have 1 principal, 1 assistant principal, 1 security guard, 2 counselors. There is no direct comparison for our school. The difference in population is noted. What should also equally be noted is that these schools have 5 administrators to help do the work that our single principal and 1 security guard handle. I see a focus of suspension rates in the high school level. There is 1 school in the district that compares with us with 865 young adults. Note it, this is more than Polaris. However, if you consider the school has a principal, 2 assistant principals, 2 security guards, and 3 counselors, our school suspension rate is actually higher. We do have an SRO available to us that we share with 13 other schools. One of the ASD's goals is to have 100% of students safe at school. This is a good goal. We should try to meet this one. So I wonder how eliminating the 1 position that is sole purpose is to keep the students safe is getting us closer to this goal. In short, Polaris has done more with less as a result of our amazing staff and families. We are not asking for more. We are simply asking to keep what is working. I ask you, if these were your kids and this was your school, would your decision be different? Thank you.
Pat, you can begin when you see the clock.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I'm also here to speak about cutting the security position at Polaris. I understand that from the outside it might not look as necessary to have a security officer at Polaris because you don't often hear about lots of violence or other negative behavior at Polaris. But one thing that's very important to understand is that he often doesn't respond to violent or negative behavior because of how proactive he is. And so he's able to work hand in glove with the Polaris community at stopping the negative behavior before it gets out of control. So that's part of the reason that you don't hear about a lot of violence at our school. And so without the position, the community would continue, of course, to be proactive, but you do need a single leader. You do need a single security officer to ultimately be responsible and to lead the proactive efforts when you have a group of almost 500 children. And to have kids from kindergarten, to have almost 500 children from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade without a single security officer in this day and age sounds like a recipe for disaster. So I hope you will reconsider your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I could have Shauna Parrish and Tammy Hogg. Hogue, sorry.
That's okay. Everybody gets it wrong. It's good.
And Shauna, I believe you're first.
Thank you for letting us be here. I'd like to address the proposed elimination of an assistant principal position at South High. My name is Shauna Parrish, and I was born and raised in Anchorage since a long time ago and graduated from Diamond High. I am currently an ASD parent with the last of 4 sons set to graduate in 2021. I am also the current PTSO president at South. Over the years, I've been involved in multiple athletics, the music department, South Theater, and various activities for students, teachers, staff, and the community. Since becoming the PTSO president, I've become even more enlightened as to the complicated ballet of organizing and scheduling at the school. With this proposed elimination of an AP position, you will combine 4 huge jobs of athletics, curriculum, staff services, and student services, to name a few, into a 3-job position and will serve over 1,360 students. In a typical day of discipline issues, academic concerns, attendance, extracurricular activities, safety, etc., to name a few, of which many of these topics need an administrator to sign off on. What would the quality or quantity of work look like for those few administrators who are left to attend to 1,360 students? How do you subdivide their time, efforts, means, and abilities to attend these students? What would get lost? Efficiency and presence. Reducing our assistant principal positions will impact the positive presence of a principal and APs that they currently serve in our school. As they get spread thinner and thinner, we will have less of a proactive interaction with the children that has helped our school to have some positive success rates and graduation numbers. Currently, our school has the most kids in the ASD participating in school-sponsored activities. In other words, our school is busy with school activities. There is a documented correlation between students that participate in extracurricular activities and their graduation success. Activities alone need someone to manage all the school-sponsored events for the students, parents, coaches, travel, transportation, eligibility, etc., to name a few. There's an old adage, more hands make lighter work. In this instance, it would be true. In fact, in this situation, more hands means more students' lives touched in a positive way. I can't imagine having a workload that would include 1,360 students and making sure their academic, social, mental, physical, and extracurricular needs were tended to with 2 other colleagues. It's overwhelming, to say the least. I know for a fact that several of our administrators already spend many, many extra hours, even with the 4 positions currently filled in assistant principal. I would like to ask you to please reconsider eliminating the position of an AP at South Anchorage High School.
Thank you. You can begin when you see the clock.
Okay. Good evening. Good evening, school board members and Dr. Bishop. My name is Tammy Hogue. I also am a South Anchorage High School parent and have been over in that area with Golden View and South for many, many years. And I am just going to add on with what Mrs. Parrish had spoken about. This is important to our school because of the fact that we are hoping that you consider not to eliminate this position. And I want to give you just a little bit on the numbers. I looked at Eagle River and I looked at Chugiak, and they, in comparison, are close to us. They've got about 850, 950 kids to our 1,360 kids. At Eagle River and Chugiak, you have those positions of a principal and 2 assistants. And so when I look at that, I see that ASD is saying for those schools, you have said that they you've assigned and you have said it's an adequate enough coverage for them for that number. Well, when you take our 1,360 minus, let's just say, even the 850 of one of those schools, that would mean that we have 400 to 500 more students at our school that you are asking us to do with those 1 principal and 2 assistant principals. This is important for our school. Just like Mrs. Parrish had said, that we have a lot of kids who are in academics. And when you take curriculum and you take activities and then you take a principal who's over student services and staff services, and then you're going to take that position and divide one of those into, so 2 principals will do 3 jobs. I just asked my husband, who is, I won't say who he works for, but he's over about 140 people. For you to then ask somebody to manage 400 to 500 people, and these are youth who are not adults who should be doing their job. I just would like you to consider this, because what is working at South Anchorage High School is working. We have seen it. We have been boots on the ground with these people watching. I am such a huge advocate about being leaner and meaner when it comes to budget. I totally appreciate that you guys have a lot of hard decisions to make. We do need to cut some things. I'd like you to consider maybe not cutting that and consider cutting things that are non-essential things. Surveys. I'm going to say this, sorry, ridiculous state tests, studies, or anything else that has nothing to do with boots on the ground. We have watched these 4 positions, these people currently, who are doing a fabulous job at our school and managing and making sure that the academic, social, emotional learning, and also activities are all being done well to benefit our children and our community. This is why it's important for us to come tonight to testify before you. I appreciate you allowing us to come and talk with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If I could have Tom Claymeyer and Madison Duvall. You can begin.
Thank you, Madam President, board members, Madam Superintendent. I'm Tom Claymeyer, the president of the Anchorage Education Association. And first of all, I want to thank all of you. I fully recognize that you are in a very difficult situation. I and our members appreciate the process that was created for input by employees and the community and the creative solutions that are proposed today to close the deficit in what seems to be an impossible task, a Gordian knot of budgets, if you will. No matter what you had proposed, there will be unhappy people. Given the backdrop of the governor's budget, this really is an unsolvable problem because of the fact that there are no ways to reduce programs or efficiencies to be found which do not make the job harder for educators or reduce supports for students. We know you're legally bound to present a balanced budget with the dollars allocated by the state, and that the true solution to the problem lies in Juneau. The governor's budget, on top of the last 8 years of previous cuts, represents a clear step backwards, as manifested here, reducing opportunities for our students in ASD. The governor and the legislature are quite focused on reading by age 9, and perhaps rightly so. But I wonder if they truly realize the consequences of underfunding schools. In addition to some of the impacts heard in previous testimony, we also know that Alaska students suffer from some of the highest rates of obesity, abuse, poverty, and the experience of trauma in the nation. Yet here in ASD, we have essentially been forced to reduce health education, which may be the only discussions about healthy living that our most at-risk students receive in their entire lives. Without adequately addressing these issues, how can we expect a vulnerable child to excel in reading? On the other end of the spectrum, our highly gifted students who are most in need of enrichment beyond the standard curriculum rely on programs like Ignite to get the extra challenge, the inspiration they crave to motivate their young minds and continue their learning. That too clearly is being diminished. In addition to not meeting our students' needs, the current state budget actually exacerbates one of the very problems the governor spoke of in his State of the State address in terms of attracting and retaining educators. Instead of talking about empowering employees tonight, how we can improve schools, programs that we can add, ways to do better, and additional supports that we can provide for our students, we are contemplating which cuts will hurt the least. And that saddens me. My hope, however, lies in the fact that there is still time for the legislature to do the right thing, to listen to the community and provide the necessary resources to meet the needs of our students. As such, as an old history teacher, I would offer that the school board has an opportunity to be the Alexander the Great of budgets here and to unravel that Gordian knot. The solution is your continued advocacy for our students by submitting a supplemental budget request to the legislature, insisting on a full allocation of funds necessary to truly meet the needs of our students as you did last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Madison, you can begin when you see the clock here on the front screen.
Good evening. My name is Madison Duvall. I am in the 7th grade and I attend Polaris K-12 school. I have since kindergarten. I am here to talk about the budget cut for one of our one and only security guards, and they are not planning on replacing him. I think that they should not do this because we need the security guard to keep us safe, but not only does he make it a safe environment, he also goes the extra mile to check up on us and helps our students stay track. He is a safe person for students to build a relationship with He provided younger students with reflective items for their coats at the beginning of the winter year, including my 2 younger sisters. I also have found memories of this security person when I was younger, Tammy. She moved away a few years ago, but she helped build a school spirit and positive memories when I didn't even understand her position in our school. And that is why you shouldn't cut the security out of the budget for players. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. So just a reminder, although we do appreciate our students' testimony, again, if we could have no clapping, I'd appreciate that. The next one is Kimberly, and I'm going to say S because I can't read this writing. Okay, thank you. If you could come forward, and Frank Hauser. And Kimberly, when you see the clock, you can begin.
Good evening, school board members and staff. I am Kimberly Santagata, a mother of 3 students that attend Polaris K-12 and 1 more in preschool. I am also a substitute for the district and on the Native Advisory Committee. I understand the need for a balanced budget, but I'm concerned about the impact that the proposed cuts will have on students and their learning. Teachers are already burdened with fitting everything into their day, adding health and taking an hour a week of learning time with a late start or early release. Some students only get parts of health education at school, as was in my life. Please be mindful of the impacts as you decide where and what cuts are made. Please inform parents on how we can help ASD give our students the best education they can get here in Anchorage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Bishop, President Marset, members of the board. My name is Frank Hauser. I'm the principal at Service High School. You're probably getting a little sick of me by now. For the 3rd year in a row, here I am, like the proverbial broken record, testifying about the importance of assistant principals and principals in our large Anchorage high schools. Last year, board member Holloman joked about putting body cams on high school principals and APs. In all seriousness, I'll reiterate my offer to wear one so you can see what my day is like. Starting at 4:45 a.m. answering emails, working through lunch and dinner, to a sporting event or PTSA meeting or concert that ends at 9:30 at night, and then getting up the next day and doing it all over again. Teachers get a 30-minute duty-free lunch every day. You know how to get a group of ASD high school principals to laugh? Ask them when was the last time they got a lunch or a weekend off. You've already heard me talk about the volume of needs principals and APs meet in schools with thousands of teenagers, and you've heard me and APs talk about their jobs. We don't have 4 CEOs in a high school but 1. The assistant principals who do unique jobs in several vital areas: curriculum, discipline, staff services, or activities. You've heard me talk about school safety, and I pray you've heard me tell you that we are stretched to the breaking point in our Anchorage high schools. But you've heard all of this already, so I'm going to tell you something new today. I'm honored to serve as a secondary principal of the year for the state of Alaska, and I'd like to share some information I've begun researching. I've talked about how when I attended Palmer High School, we had 4 administrators, a principal, 2 assistant principals, and an athletic director considered an administrator for about 800 students. So that's 4 administrators for 800 high school students. Today at Service, we have 4 administrators for 1,600 students. So my students today have half the support and supervision from principals and assistant principals that I did as a high school student in Alaska. Now, you might be thinking that reduction in principals and APs in high school is just a sign of the budgetary times in the state. That's what I thought until I visited Palmer High School this year and learned that the students there still have a principal, 2 assistant principals, and an athletic director who earns a salary comparable to assistant principals for 800 students. My students have about 1 principal for 400 students. At Palmer, it's 1 to 200 students. At Lathrop and West Valley in Fairbanks, they have 1 principal for about 240 students. At Sitka High School, 1 principal for 181 students. The ratio of students to high school principals are already significantly higher in Anchorage than in other districts in the state. And as you're considering even more cuts to principals, I'd like you to keep that in mind. In cutting high school principals and APs, you're not getting rid of paper-pushing office workers, but experienced educators, teachers and counselors with additional degrees and certification, who spend our days interacting with students. Districts around the state facing similar budgetary constraints still recognize the importance of high school principals and APs, and I hope you will too. Any further reductions will be detrimental to student success and our ability to implement school board goals. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could have Kincaid Calder and Mandy McConnell, if I said that right.
Hello, I am Kincaid Calder from College Gate Elementary, the school that's right across from here. I am really hoping that you do not take away Ignite, since for me it is a very fun learning experience for me. Plus, it's the only enrichment type program of its kind in our school, and that 35 minutes is not enough. Our lessons usually take over 3 hours or over 2 hours to complete, and if you cut that down into 35 minutes, which is for the 6th grade win, that will definitely make a negative impact on our respective Ignite time. Plus, I have heard that my brother is also in Ignite, and his win time is used for things that are just as good as Ignite, and taking these things away would be like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mandy, you can begin.
Hello, my name is Mandy McConnell, and I'm a parent of a 2nd grader and an upcoming parent of a kindergartner. It has been brought to my attention that the current Ignite program is being redesigned and absorbed into the WIN, What I Need time, and that some of the Ignite teachers will become coaches to train teachers to meet the needs of gifted students during WIN. My husband and I appreciate having Ignite at our neighborhood school. Our son loved the whole testing process and would stop the Ignite teacher in the hall to see if she was going to pull him for more Ignite testing. I asked him, why is he having a good time testing? He replied, because it's hard. When he found out he qualified for Ignite, he couldn't wait to begin and would keep asking when Ignite was. My son looks forward to Ignite every week. He has been in the enrichment wing group for the past 2 years, and the experience in Ignite is different. I received information about the budget that daily acceleration or enrichment will be preserved during the win time. I highly doubt that the Ignite redesign will meet the needs of gifted students to the same degree. How does removing the qualified gifted teacher from Ignite and employing them as a teacher resource produce better results than having the qualified teacher actually teaching these students? Ignite teachers take an additional credits to be qualified in this role they teach. Let's do the math. Ignite teachers need to take additional 6 highly qualified credits. If 1 credit equals 750 minutes of contact time, an additional 1,500 minutes of coursework. Multiply that by 6, that equals to 13,500 minutes, or 225 hours of college coursework. Are you telling me that you're giving classroom teachers 225 hours of training before they begin running Ignite Accelerated Enrichment wing groups? The National Association for Gifted Children website states that evidence suggests that gifted programs help students with academic achievement, socialization, and future success. Unfortunately, many gifted programs lack the necessary resources and are taught by teachers without the proper training. I fear that this will be the case. Special education is a full spectrum, and there are needs on both sides. Gifted education should not be an afterthought.
Thank you. If I could have, I think it's Shannon Brody and I can't read that at all.
Is it Julia and Tegan, maybe? Lydia.
Oh, Lydia, okay. Lydia Tegan?
And Tegan, there's 2 names.
Oh, okay. And Tegan. And if you're going to testify together, you can just wait there. Thank you. And you can begin.
Okay, so thank you for listening. I am a school librarian. I'm at Bowman Elementary School Library. I've been teaching with the Anchorage School District for 30 years. This is my first time testifying. A lot of people have spoken on my behalf before, and I've appreciated their testimony. Today, I feel like I need to stand up for our school librarians, our elementary specifically. So today, just as an example, I had our Visit Our Schools day in our school, and we had preschoolers in our library checking out books. We had our read cart set up by our PTA under our PTA's budget. We had our book fair going on, and it was a very enriching place for our visitors to see, which I was very proud of. What I'm concerned with right now is the planning time coverage proposal in response to the proposal to eliminate health teachers. Each of us in our school libraries right now have 31 hours to play with. If you look at 37.5 hours per week, we have, if we get it, our 30-minute lunch, like Frank Hauser addressed earlier. That limits us to 35 hours per week if we take our lunches. With 4 hours of planning time, we're down to 31. If we go through with this proposal, it'll be an hour per class. Currently, I have 28 classes, 585 students that I see every week. 4 of those are preschool. Those would instantly have to go. The 24 that I'm left with would be 24 of those 31 hours. For shelving alone, it's at least 500 minutes per week, which is 8 hours. So we're at 32 hours now, just with shelving with classes. If I look at the list on the proposal that Anne and Jenny put a lot of time into, it says library maintenance time will need to be protected to allow librarians to continue to do the tasks that are required to make sure the library functions smoothly. These include open checkout, student supervision, grants and fundraising, reports and contacting students, collection development, which includes weeding, evaluation, selection, book processing, all of the above. When you look at book repairs, my tub right now after a week has about 50 books in it for repair. Organization of the library, collaboration with teachers, cleaning, checking, and shelving. And that's just a few of the items that are on the list. I added more to mine. I added time to each of those. So in total, it's between 17 and 24 hours a week that I spend on just the maintenance of the library. And so right now, currently, I see classes for 12 hours a week, plus preschool, so that's an additional hour. So that's 13 hours of time with students right now, plus 17 to 24 hours that I somehow managed to find time to do for the library maintenance. So I don't see how we can squeeze 32 hours into 31, eliminating all of the other necessary duties that a library entails. So I'm really hopeful you can look closely. I'm going to send you the figures, look closely at the time allotment that we have and what we can squeeze into it, and see if we can still maintain quality elementary school libraries with the time given. Thank you.
Now, ladies. And you can begin.
Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Lydia Schock. And I'm Tegan Thorne. And we are students from Polaris K-12 school, and we are here today to discuss the importance of safety and security officers in schools.
The data from our school doesn't show many suspensions because the adults in our building work proactively with students. This is largely due to the work of our amazing safety/security officer. He knows students across the grade levels and is equally effective with the 5-year-olds learning how to navigate recess as he is with high schoolers facing decisions about alcohol and drugs.
His presence in our building not only makes our school community stronger, but he unquestionably keeps us safe and secure, allowing students and teachers to focus on learning. Taking this position away from us leaves us vulnerable, something that in today's climate makes it unacceptable learning environment for students. Our geographical location has presented many challenges this year, unrelated to the student population. Trespassing, vandalism, and even a car chase that resulted in someone crashing into our pond on campus. Unfortunately, we have also dealt with the sad consequences of Anchorage's homeless situation. Even scarier is the amount of drug, paraphernalia, and needles our safety and security officer has picked up on his regular routine and daily perimeter checks of our school.
Our school doesn't show a need for a safety/security officer because of how effective our safety officer is at his job. If this position were removed, the data would likely quickly change and demonstrate a need. And which students and what learning gets sacrificed to know what we already know, that this position is needed, valued, and critical to our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on Memorandum 090? Please come forward. And once you are there, if you would state your name, please, and spell it.
Hello, board. My name is Ryan Thomas, R-Y-A-N, Thomas, the traditional spelling. Before we tout how great the ASD is, consider this. Corn Flakes were originally developed by the Kellogg's to feed the mentally unstable in Dr. Kellogg's hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan. Chew on that for a minute. Next, before we consider cutting health teachers take a praxis test to be highly qualified to teach health. They teach about human growth and development, social emotional learning, dental, mental, muscular, skeletal, and circulatory systems. I imagine that they needed to pay for this required test to qualify. How will those who absorb the curriculum become highly qualified to teach this curriculum? When will these people study? When will these people, or how will these people pay for this test? And when will they be able to take it? On their personal time? The early dismissal of students, I'm assuming, on 1 day a week in the proposal is to give planning time to teachers which they would otherwise lose. Yet the curriculum needs time to be taught, so where is it where it's already tight in the schedule? So where are they going to fit it in? Before the district does this, really consider some implications to it. And one last thing, before the district switched to its current paper towel dispensers, did you consider that you were being sucked into a racket where only their towels would fit the dispensers? You are stuck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to testify? Please come forward. If you could state your name and spell it for us, please, okay?
All right. I am Carter Vigil, Carter Vigil.
Thank you. And Carter, you can begin.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Carter Vigil, and I'm in 5th grade at Bowman Elementary. How many of you can say the entire periodic table? Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, neon, sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, argon, potassium, and calcium, chromium, titanium, vanadium, manganese. Who can finish that? I can go on and name all 118 elements, and I learned it from Ignite. I'm hearing a lot about changes to my school because of the budget cuts, and this includes getting rid of the Ignite program. I've been in Ignite since 2nd grade, and I would like to see the program stay in schools because I really enjoy it. My friends and I get to learn about engineering, chemistry, and we get to be surgeons and biologists. Just on Monday, we dissected frogs. Plus, our teacher, Miss Yutrenka, is awesome. My favorite part this year is doing cryptograms. One example we did in class was about persistence. This is what I learned in my own words. We can never learn anything unless we persist and have a growth mindset and we are open to continuous learning. Ignite teaches you when things get tough, just persist through and you will succeed. My teacher also taught us success is like an iceberg. You can only see the tip of the iceberg, but like 95% is on the bottom. The tip of the iceberg is success. You succeeded. The 95% of it that you can't see is struggle. The work, the practice, and all that stuff that you had to go through to succeed. My point is, people can only see the tip of the iceberg, the success, but they don't see the bottom, the students learning and struggling to get to the top. We will never get to learn these things and do all these fun activities if Ignite doesn't exist in schools. Please keep our program. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for testifying. Is there anyone else that would like to testify? Hello, young lady. If you could state your name and spell it for us, please.
I'm Chloe, Chloe, Vigil.
And don't be nervous.
Can I start?
You can begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chloe Vigil, and I am a second grader at Bowman Elementary. I'm here to let you know I want Ignite to stay in my school. When my brother comes home from school on Mondays, he's happy because he had a lot of fun and learned a lot in class. If you take Ignite away from my school, I will not get the chance to learn what my brother has learned and do all the fun science and engineering projects. I was looking forward to getting a chance to be a part of Misty Trunka's class. My dad says that if we are future leaders, how are we supposed to lead if all you do is cut, cut, cut? Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Moody, Sarah, last name Moody.
And you
all
can
right.
begin.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you. My name is Sarah Moody. Not only am I a parent of a kindergartner, first and third grader, I'm also a regular sub at my children's neighborhood school and co-PTA president. I'm blessed to interact closely with the neighborhood school, my children's educators, as well as the rest of the faculty and staff at Kissoon Elementary. I'd like to share a couple testimonies from my daughter, as well as other fellow Ignite students, if that time permits. My daughter states she couldn't be here tonight because she has other obligations. She says, I would really like if Ignite could stay the same. I enjoy working with 3D printers the most, and I fear these will be taken away with the proposed changes. I also enjoy the math and science behind what I learn with my Ignite classmates. The break from everyday ordinary class is much needed. The projects, creativity, uninterrupted time, and working with my Ignite friends are fun and exciting. My regular classroom has many disruptive students who don't care about learning, and that makes for a long school year. I'm concerned with the budget cuts that the tools and opportunities for projects will go away, and I won't have the chance to learn from older students like I currently do. I want learning to be fun, challenging, and engaging in an environment possible to do so. My teachers' activities, classroom talks, and teaching provide these opportunities. And she's an eight-year-old third grader at Kissoon. From a fellow sixth grade Ignite classmate, dear the ASD school board, it makes me sad to think that they're thinking about shutting down the Ignite program. I've been in Ignite since second grade and have always looked forward to the day when I get to go. I learned lots of things, history, math, vocabulary, etc. We do lots of fun and educational products, from dissecting lamb hearts to building 3D printers. It would be a shame that other gifted kids wouldn't get the experience of learning to play chess or designing 3D printed items. I really, really hope that they don't shut down the Ignite program. And then I have one last one that I have to find. This is from one of my children's classmates, another fellow third grader. This year's my first year in Ignite. Ignite has given me the power to be smarter. Ignite is fun and I enjoy it very much. I think that it is very important. My Ignite teacher enjoys teaching and I enjoy listening. Everything we do makes my classwork and specials easier to understand. I like working together with other people in Ignite to find answers for things we would not necessarily learn in our ordinary class. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else that would like to testify on Memorandum 090? Okay, seeing no other testimony, I'm now going to open it up to board discussion. Mr. Holloman.
I would like to say in response to what everybody said, I don't think anybody up here is happy about the steps that we're having to take. And unfortunately, this isn't a unique year. This is one more year where we're trying to make the least negative impact as we adjust for the coming year. And unfortunately, I feel like the numbers we're using may be optimistic, that there's no assurance that the funding we're looking from Juneau is going to be this good. We could be back in a couple of months with an even greater difficulty in front of us, or not. We do have to be advocates. We do have to tell our stories to the people that represent us. Unlike a lot of school boards across the country, we are not able to levy a tax. We're not able to set our own budget. We do have to make decisions about how to carry the district forward with what we're given to work with, and we have very limited control over it. So I think everyone here will be talking to legislators about funding us at least to the point where we can go forward doing what we've done in the past year, and one of these days maybe sit down and think of new things that might be just as good as Ignite that we haven't done yet, that might pull more kids in with the same level of excitement and give them the same level of eloquence that we've heard here tonight. So I appreciate the tone from everybody. Everyone seems to understand this is tough. They understand the value of their program and feel it very closely, and we are trying to balance that against everything else we see across the district. So thank you for coming tonight.
So the one thing I do want to mention about this budget, and we had talked about, is a supplemental budget. Asking for additional funds that we might not necessarily get, but at least letting the legislative know that these are the funds we need to operate this school, our district.
If you'd like, Jim can comment on that. We did provide that.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, ma'am, to the board president. So the state's supplemental budget is used to make up for shortfalls halfway through the fiscal year, things like earthquake, fires, other things, the ferries breaking down that costed additional money. So a supplemental budget would normally be done at our level. At state, that's what their supplemental is in February every year. For us, a supplemental budget would be done first our main budget, we put it through, and then if there's a significant change to the revenue or expenses, then we would be obligated to do a supplemental budget. I think, though, the $68 million that we put in as a state legislative grant, which would have given us enough teachers to reduce class level at 15, by and large, at most grade levels from K through 6, rising up to 25 at high school, is probably a more appropriate mechanism for articulating our need and what we would do if we received all or portions of that money. It's really scalable. I think clearly the board is focused on elementary, any portion.
Mr. Anderson, I think the key to that, thanks for explaining the differences, is that it is actually present in this budget. It is. Correct. That's
Okay. That's what yes, Ms. Hilden.
And I just want to clarify, because the number does look a lot larger than last year, but it's because there's that $68 million, it's just an empty grant, which is a hole in case the legislature decides to, that they want smaller class sizes and they want all these wonderful things that we've heard tonight. So just in communicating to the public that our budget hasn't grown that much this year, we are within the funding formula, but that we've left a place for increased funding.
And Madam President, and to Member Hildy's point, I'd also like Mr. Anderson to, so just to establish, yes, there is a grant in there that is the ask of what would we need to keep, classrooms at a level that is effective for learning with our additional support. So that's in there as a supplemental grant. But also, the number that you're looking at is the upper limit. And Mr. Anderson can describe how that's different than the actual state money that's in the budget, which is much less. This is including other grants and things. So this is the upper limit that is required at the local level for the ability to spend, but that is not necessarily what we will receive for the operational budget, which is what you're approving. So can you tell the difference in the grants and other things that are in there in addition to that supplemental grant?
Absolutely. So when you look at the governmental funds, you will see grants, you'll see student nutrition, transportation, other sources. And so that number increases. It includes the federal, all the different federal titles and everything else. It is true, though, under state grants, just like last year, a big chunk of that is wedges. Wedges that if a grant gets approved by the legislature, we will have the mechanism pre-built in the budget to receive that money. We can't spend it unless we get it. So there's a rather significant amount. State construction grants, we generally put a rather healthy amount between 8 to 10 million as a placeholder in case we get fortunate enough to get it. But quite honestly, we usually don't. The most we get is somewhere between 1 and 3 million, and that's every 2 or 3 years. So you can never spend what you don't get if it's a grant. So it really is an upper limit. So if we get fortunate, legislature approves it, governor signs off, we have the mechanism to receive those funds.
One more thing. Could you restate the actual operating budget from the state? It's around the half $500 million, $573 million, which is significantly lower than this upper limit. Could you state that number?
Of course. We have a chart for that, naturally. Let me get my reading glasses. It's like 4 font. So our actual, if you look at what we would get from local, it would be, and that includes the 6 million fund balance. It's an accounting thing, but we do have to account for it that way. So locally, you get 223 million. From state revenue, 332, almost 333 million, about 17 million from the federal government, the vast majority of that being federal impact aid, with a total for our general fund or our operations fund of 573,475,000. That's our operating fund. Everything else is one of the other 9 funds.
So, Madam President, just to be clear, when you see that large, almost 875 million, that is inclusive of the grant wedges, what we've applied for other federal money that's established in grants, but the money for which these positions and others that we can operate are strictly within the 573 million. We've discussed tonight coaches for gifted ed to support the teaching of that, so that we can broaden the really capacity of teachers to teach gifted ed. We heard today that's needed, as well as instructional coaches. Those are positions that don't reside in this operating budget. And so we've had lots of suggestions about there's just this extra stuff. Those are actually grants that specific to the grant, they work with adults and support adults. In research, just like in any other profession, having a coach, having a professional growth, building competencies really changes your bottom line. And in teaching, and we educators, we want to also improve our craft. So working collaboratively together, taking professional development, as well as having, time to learn from each other is imperative to that. And so we've, while it's not a perfect world, having those additional supports for teachers is supportive of the classroom, but they reside outside of these funds, and they reside in monies that we could go after to be able to support the classroom. So they're not interchangeable, simply like the food service account, the transportation account that were also in here. Those are other accounts that we manage here that have the money that really come with the number of students. They're Seminole block grants in that they come with the service that they offer. So you receive the money for a particular thing. You might call it a string. But the 573 million is actually what we can recall. So those differences aren't, holy cow, we're growing. It's literally, like he says, it's an accounting thing.
Right. Ms. Mitchell?
So, Mr. Anderson, just to clarify, I'm looking at page 31 of the budget book, So what you're saying is that in the grants fund, we had in our adopted budget this year, we had 148 million, and part of that was that wedge. Based on the Picus-Oden study, what we think we really would need to deliver a high quality education to each of our students. And this year, the wedge we're putting in is 127 million, which includes the same amount as we had last year. Can you just explain that a little bit more?
Absolutely. Through the president to Member Mitchell, we did include the same amount for the class sizes, so 68 million. What we did not include was additional requests for pre-K. And the logic behind that was Senate Bill 6 that's being pushed through actively by both the governor and several senators, which actually would make it to where we get ADM credit for pre-K if in fact we already are certified by the state, which we are. So it didn't make sense. It made more sense to focus our efforts on supporting what appears to be a joint legislative effort to actually permanently fix and embed pre-K into the ADM formula.
And I'm sorry, so that's the $21 million difference?
It's about 17 million and some of the rest. I don't know if it was construction grant. I can pull back the cover on this and send it out in Board Connect. I know construction grant we lowered a little because we just haven't been getting, but I don't know the amount off the top of my head.
And I think last year was classroom and pre-K is what we included in that figure.
And that was over $81 million.
Yes.
And can I continue?
Sure.
Okay, so, and I know that there are other things that we all think are necessary, like more counselors and social workers and that type of thing. That was not included. And, we're wrestling this year with this issue of revamping the Ignite program. And I think that we all agree that Ignite, kids who are on that high end of the performance spectrum, it is a type of, it's like they're like special ed kids also. They need that engagement, and they need that extra enrichment to keep them engaged in their school. And I don't think there's any of us who would not want to keep that program if budget situation were different, and certainly I'd want to expand and have more of those types of opportunities for more students. I wonder if that's something, it's a fine line. Do we just include the wedge for as we did last year, or do we want to say, the cuts we're making this year are harmful as well, so we add those on top of what we had last year? I don't know if that's something we want to consider doing or not.
Well, I would agree that, we talk about mental health counselors in our elementary schools. That's something that's been a focus of this board for quite some time, and we've not been able to come up with the funds to produce that, especially with the cuts in front of us. So I would like to hear the board's opinion on at least adding maybe to that dollar amount for mental health counselors. Because again, I think that's what we need to be able to operate our schools with the trauma and things that are coming into play. So I don't know if that's something we want to add, and we can discuss the other things also. I'd like to hear other board members' opinions or comments, please. Ms. Hilding, and then Mr. Holloman.
Just watching the time. I guess I'm not opposed to it, but we've had supplemental funding in the past that we had the flexibility for that. I guess I don't know the answer because we just now talked about it, and I would want time to think about it. So that's where I'm kind of at.
Can you expand on that?
I didn't think about it yet because I just heard it tonight, so I want to think about it.
Mr. Holman?
And this number is probably on a piece of paper in front of us, but I do think it would be good for us to be aware of what we would need from the state to run this year's school district again next year. The difficulty, of course, is we don't want to make it that simple. We'd like to be able to expand. We'd like to be able to reduce our class sizes. We'd like to be able to offer the kind of support to students in need that we think they need. But yeah, I'm guessing you know that number by heart.
Through the president to member Holloman, yes, the 19.5 something million dollars was to your point of if we wanted to continue our programs as is moving into next year, that's the deficit that is just initially from increased costs. Just strictly doing business one year to the next. And at many different organizations, including, government, those increases are built into budgets, but because, to your point, again, we don't go out and, bond ourselves. It's through the city. We don't, levy any kind of taxes. We receive. We just don't have that ability to pre-build those into budgets. That's not what school districts do in Alaska. Other places around the country do, but not in Alaska. It's not designed that way.
And I would just like to add, what we put in last year in that pocket or that wedge for grants, I think we do it as a way of telling the legislators and the community that this is what we need to effectively support our students and to run our district in a way that we can address all those issues that aren't being addressed or those items that we were having to cut. It's not that I think magically this money is going to appear, but as a school board member, I have to advocate for what our students, our staff, and our district need to be able to operate in a manner that does create successful students. Ms. Mitchell, and then Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, I appreciate this discussion, and I think, so much of what we've heard tonight, I think people do realize that the district that I moved here from does have taxing authority, and so they could create 5 and 10-year plans and truly know that the revenue is there because the community supported them, the community voted for increased taxes to support the schools, and we're not in that situation. So I think it is just important for people to understand how the system does work, that we are, and I think, the municipality is in similar budget straits, but they do give to the maximum that they are legally allowed to give to our school district. So we can't even turn to our local government and say, can you help fill the gap here? It really is, if we get more allocated from the state, then the municipality can also increase their allocation. So it's an unfortunate situation we're in, and I don't think anybody's happy with the kinds of decisions that we have to make. But it is important to know that, I agree with Ms. Marcette that we absolutely, as board members, we need to advocate for what our district needs, what our students need, the class sizes they need so that the teachers can develop the relationships that we know make a difference to these students. We know that so many of our students have, I'm in elementary schools a fair amount, and there have been several times that I've gone in that either a classroom's locked down or the school's locked down because of a behavioral issue. Those kids need support. They're not, their intention is not to go to school and be a bad kid. They have trauma in their lives. They have these adverse childhood experiences. Whatever it is, they need support, and we don't have the counselors. We don't have the psychologists. We don't have the class sizes. We don't have the breakout room, the recovery rooms. I can't remember what they're called. All of these resources do matter in our ability to help support our students, and that's what we're all here for at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Mr. Holloman, or Mr. Donnelly.
I'd like to be presented with some options by the administration for alternatives to the specific cuts that have been proposed. Things that in their mind would make sense, and maybe in their particular policy they think they're, I'm trying to choose the right words here, less damaging than the cuts that are currently being proposed. But at the same time, they might be viable options to us as elected officials in response to public comment.
Through the president to Member Donnelly, we did, and just so you know, the process of this budget really began last October, when we hit count in November and knew moving forward. So it's been a process, and as you know, through your meetings and finances, the work here included people who lead divisions and as well as principals from schools, and it wasn't an isolated planning. So just so you know, there was lots of many ideas, but the top one that came out of the planning of the last 4 options was this that you have before you. And I did provide during the budget session that the alternate plan B would be to increase. You can make up that $5.5 million if you increase PTR from kindergarten to 6th grade by 1. That makes up the same. However, the feedback and the input that we received from the community, from internally external stakeholders, was to hold class sizes harmless. So classroom teachers, core classroom teachers, don't increase class sizes. So we, did that. The second thing was to keep programs and coursework. So courses at secondary programs. So this was a way to keep health and keep servicing gifted students, albeit in a different manner, and a reorganization. And so we haven't gathered this is a process that once we know of the budget, then we will begin to work with the stakeholders to get the best programs we can for our kids moving forward. But the alternate is to do PTR. What has come up are other electives that were mentioned here. We could talk about music. We could talk, when you look at your program about where funds are, this was the one that we had some room to be able to offer the program in a different redesign. 14 million of the deficit was taken outside of schools totally. So we've gone through and either adjusted revenue in certain places, reduced in others. But this budget also includes where we're needing to spend more money, which is in some special services, most of those going to pre-K, which we hope, and plan on getting ADM for. So the revenue that went up in that area, we're looking to, at least in the gen ed preschool, to cover. So I'm not sure that the amount is so significant that I'm not sure, after the 4 years that I've been here in planning, where we could carry out the actions of the board, and primarily really safety. If safety is one of our primary concerns, a lot of the positions that we have in school actually respond to that. Outside of teachers, we can provide as well to the board, and I have it here, is just the number of people in other positions. If we were to, whether it's administrators, custodians, office people, we are narrowing down. When almost 90% of our funds go to people, it's in people. There are 1,000 people of our employees, of our a little over 5,000 employees that are in totem, which would be school support, secretaries, aides to schools and teachers, over 3,000 certified, 135 administrators, 72 exempt, including 28 administrators here, including 7 of you all. You're in that FTE as well, so 21, to carry out the functions of the district. So when we talk about administration, because that's one that comes up often, and frankly, you bring that up often, so I'll share it. I mean, your payroll, your HR, your this, and so, give us some suggestions. We've had over 30 people in rooms thinking about this. We've had a survey that went out to teams of people to say, if there's some redesign or something that we're missing, give us the information. You know, a lot of times what we offer is related, just like I said before, one of the things that came up were coaches, get rid of the coaches. Well, we could get rid of coaches, but that doesn't help us with the budget because they're not in this money that we're talking about. Other things related to the law, we specifically can't remove things due to either state law or federal law. So in thinking about operating the district with the goals for which the board has asked for student learning, I'm not sure what else to redesign or to eliminate. We really did work. The easy one is to go to PTR. We took a difficult decision to have to say to redesign, because certainly in the change process, our human element is the most difficult. But we are open and willing. I don't have any more options to get the goals done and to operate schools that would significantly impact this bottom line number. So I appreciate it, but if there's more than one more, we'll have to go back to the drawing board to look at them, because the alternate was PTR.
Mr. Donnelly?
Oh, I didn't get a turn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Hildy first.
Thank you. I just want to, highlight that last fall we asked Dr. Bishop to look at ways we can work within our projected deficit without harming programs. This budget, not everything's the same, but it strives to do that, to meet the direction that the board gave within the actual financial constraints without increasing class sizes or through PTR. That's the direction of the board. So any changes or anything has to be the direction of the board. We talked about our board retreat, that Dr. Bishop and her team prepared the very complex budget looking at all the needs of our district. So the thought that one board member can, pick and move little pieces around, it's not logical that that's going to result in a good benefit to our students. If we don't like this budget, we can say no to this budget and say start all over again. But moving little pieces around is not going to make sense at a district of our size and complexity.
Mr. Donnelly?
How much money would we save by going back away from the middle school model that was adopted this last year?
Mr. Donnelly, I'm going to say this with the utmost respect, and that is one of the things we've talked about with this budget is that we give Dr. Bishop and her staff the ability to go and present to us based on the guidelines we've given them as a board, the direction we've given them as a board to come forward with a budget. And they are the ones that they've gone out, they've talked to their staff, they've talked out to the community, they've talked to principals, to departments. This is what they came up with in the best scenario, and it's going to get more difficult for us. It's going to get more difficult. But for us to go back and say, well, what if we cut this? What if we cut that? How much more will that save us? I just feel that that's not, and other board members certainly can weigh in. I'm not the only board member here, but my personal opinion is that doesn't move us forward in what we need to do by, I'll use another board members, we're circumventing the process to look at things that as a board we never gave direction, and as the school district they took into the account what the board said was important to them and put it forth, vented it, and came forth with the best recommendations for the school district. And that's my personal opinion as a board member. Mr. Holloman. Yes, Mr. Donnelly, I'm sorry.
Through the president, I will, I don't know if we have that number right away. Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Through the president, to Mr. Donnelly, so the net difference, if we stay at a class size of 30 and reduce the planning time, we'd save 25 positions, or roughly $2.7 million.
Mr. Holloman.
I was going to follow up because I do have a few hours sitting on that side defending the middle school model when it was trying to be cut, and it has been cut a whole lot. The thing that I think some people forget at times is the model doesn't really cost anything. Somebody has to leave the building. You have to reduce personnel, or you don't save any money. You can change you can have 2 classes a day or 20 classes a day. If you've got the same number of people and the same number of kids in the building, then the cost is the same. The schedule just changes, and the bells don't cost very much to ring. So you would be looking into a building, and you would need to find 2 people in each of our middle schools to leave. That'll have an impact on what they can teach. Junior high model, middle school model, and I think if we did that, then we would get a perhaps different group of people in the room, but also looking at what their school is going to look like the following year and being pretty upset about it as well. You know, we're hearing from people that really love what they're getting from the school district, which is an awesome thing. But I think we're just faced with having to do it somewhere else. And we face the same thing at high school. You can rearrange a schedule, but until you remove paid staff from a building, you haven't saved any dollars, and that means something goes away.
Ms. Hildy.
So do we vote on this motion as a first reading? Is that the next step?
We will vote to either move it forward
Okay.
to a reading for the next action item as is, or if there are any amendments, we can vote on those now to move it forward with those amendments to the next reading. Does that make sense? Okay. So I did find out here from Dr. Bishop that it is $1.9 million to have counselors in all elementary schools. Ms. Mitchell.
And you know, this is all symbolic, but I would love to, if we were going to add, I certainly would want to have a counselor in every elementary school. I would love to reduce the I mean, I know that we have norms again in that Picus-Oden study. If we did the whole full-blown thing, I know it would probably add another $40 or $50 million to the budget, but there are norms for what a recommended number of students to counselors is at the middle school, middle school level, the high school level, and I know that we're way above those. And I don't know if it's worth going there, but I certainly would want to at least make sure we have a counselor in every building. So if nothing else, I would want to at least add that 1.9 million in. But I'd love to provide the kind of support that really would help our students. I mean, we know from hearing from counselors that they're so busy with, you know, the kids who are in there talking about the sexual abuse they've experienced or the, you know, suicidal thoughts or whatever. They really have very little time for the non-squeaky wheel or I shouldn't even say so that's very, you know, that's making it, they're dealing with real life and death situations. And so some of the work that just is part of a counselor's work, like helping kids think about what their future is going to be, helping them figure out a path with their classes, all those types of things, that type of thing can be squeezed out because they are dealing with all of these really critical events of the moment. And, you know, similar to what we heard from Mr. Hauser about what the principals are dealing with, you know, and we know Dr. Bishop has to deal with many of these emergencies and, you know, it's just not an ideal situation, and it is what it is. But I would love to add some of that back in because class size is critical, but support for those teachers is also critical. And support, you know, it all goes back down to the students. You know, the students at the end of the day are the ones who miss out when we, as we have lost these things over the years.
Do you want to make an amendment to add that 1.9 to that? I'm just called the wedge. I don't know what else to call it. Grant. Yes, state grant.
State grant wedge or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will do that. I'll move to add, let's 1.9 or 2 million. I don't know if we want to round it off, so that we can have a counselor in every elementary school.
And I would second that.
I think I've got a point of order. I want to consider it here. This is a non-action item. And
No, it's an action item, and we put it as an action item so that we could do just this, so that in our next act, it still has 2 readings, but this gives us the opportunity to vote in our amendments and proceed to vote on the budget at the next action. Because if we put it in non-action, we couldn't vote on anything. So therefore, we can vote our amendments tonight and then vote to move the budget to the next meeting to vote on to pass it or not pass it. Yes, Mr. Donnelly.
But this is the first time we've seen the full proposal and it's the first time the public's seen the proposal. So wouldn't it be more appropriate as a non-action item since the public's never seen this before?
You're still going to have 2 opportunities for testimony for the same period of time for looking at this. We are just trying to help with getting what amendments there are out of the way. There may be more amendments the next reading, but this is just kind of, because we have that opportunity to vote, we can move forward maybe on things that board members are thinking about, and hopefully move the process next time. We'll be halfway there. Dr. Bishop, you had something?
Sure, Madam President, and really specifically to the board and the general public understanding just the process that went through. I probably didn't give it its due diligence and understanding that we did have a plan B in many minds around this. I was going to ask Dr. Stock if you could make some comments, as he on the instructional side led the changes there, and each division led their changes on the business side.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bishop and board. So, of course, as we've already articulated a little bit, the process began with the community input and the surveys and what do people value. And so this whole thing started with a couple premises that number one, preserving class size was a priority, and has already been mentioned that we would look to try our best to preserve programming for children and students. Those 2 things. The third one that hasn't been talked about here, but was also that for our staff, that if we can avoid reductions in force and preserve people's livelihoods and jobs and still meet those top 2 needs, that we would try to do that. So those were the things that we started with. So from those inputs, then there's been well over 30 people here in this office that have been working on that. And since I've been here, this is the most extensive amount of time spent trying to think outside the box and look creatively at how we can meet those criteria that were mentioned. We went through many different options and revisions. We went back to the drawing board. At one point, it had option 1, 2, 3, and 4, and some of those were untenable. Others we thought could work, and actually through some of the creative thinking of some of the staff in the curriculum departments, we were able to come up with this proposal that's in front of you. So that process took weeks to get to this point. And I guess, at this point, if there were different priorities from the board that change all that, but that's the premise we operated on from both the inputs and from what we took as direction from the board over this year. So that's why we ended up where we're at. It's certainly trying to make the best of a bad situation. There is no one here that's excited or eager for the choices in front of you. And as you've heard from things like the Polaris Group and the security and the AP, what you're hearing is that we've gone through with a fine-tooth comb and collected every efficiency that we know to get to this point, and we were still $6 million short of making the balanced budget, which is where this proposal came from. The one thing that hasn't been discussed here at all that I think is one of the positives in this, if there is one, and that is the late arrival, early release, while it might be a challenge and a difficult thing for our community in some ways, when it comes time to working with staff, they're burdened. I mean, every time we cut, the pressure gets pushed down to the point where it affects staff and students. And how do we get time for them to stop and reflect? And I've used this story internally here, as some of you may remember the Lucille Ball black and white cartoon, or the show where she's on the assembly line and the chocolates are going by the conveyor belt. Some of you are nodding your head. And she gets behind and she just starts eating them and she's shoving them everywhere. She can't stop the line. And that's how our teachers feel on a daily basis. And a late arrival or early release once a week would at least stop the line for an hour and give staff and learning communities to collaborate and talk about how to meet the board's outcomes. You set these goals. There are things that drive us, but it's a challenge to get staff together to talk about those things. And that was one of the ideas that came up from some of the folks down the chain that have been working with us on ideas. And there's a group called the Platt Group that consists of AEA members and folks that have been working on a proposal for a late arrival or early release for a long time. And that's coming up directly from the teacher representative groups who've been working with Dr. Knutson. And they were close to putting that proposal in front of us, and we found a way to mold that into this because it meets several needs for prep time and collaboration time. So that would be my description of how that whole process worked to get us to this point.
And Madam President, just to add on that last point, if it adds, the board had a direction the last time you approved the last 3-year calendar was to, one of the suggestions that came up as a high interest was a late start, early release. And so you directed us to continue work on that with that group. That was actually a board direction at the time, and now we're bringing it back. So I just wanted to give the due diligence of the teams. It's difficult because, like you said, I mean, it's teams all over who working directly and understand specifically minute to minute what's happening, and some of them are in this room. And but just to think, how can we challenge ourselves to do the best we can with what we have, and it does look different. It should be really simple for us to understand that we can't keep doing the same thing. We can't keep the same promises when we don't have the same inputs. It's just different because, to your point, Mr. Holloman, it's people. Our business is a human resource business. And it will always be. We will never be replaced by AI. And, we continue to do it, but we're reducing and looking for ways. And I'm not excited about it, but what I'm excited about is that people came to the table understanding the crisis, and we're willing to participate. And that's the kind of people we have in ASD that know we want to do the best for kids with what we have.
And it just kind of a reminder that, part of this, what we came forward with was out of our strategic planning too. We listened to the community, we got good feedback, and so we wanted to listen to the community's values and incorporate that into our budget also. And I think that's one of the things we did when we were giving the district direction on how we'd like to move. So we do have an amendment on the floor, and it's to add $1.9 million to the grant fund to fund a full-time counselor at every elementary school. And I don't know if we need to be more specific, a full-time counselor, mental health counselor, a mental health specialist maybe, because that's what we're, counselors do great things, but we're not talking about schedules and that sort of thing. Yes.
Just to clarify, the 1.9 million would provide a half of a counselor. It was 19 FTE because the bulk of our elementary that have a counselor have a 0.5 FTE. So it wouldn't be full-time per school, or we'd have to we could re-wicker the actual amount.
Okay. mental health, well, I think we want to change that to mental health provider, and I think our number might go up on that. Is that true, Mr. Anderson? If we were to move for a counselor at a full-time mental health, or would it be the same for half-time?
A full-time at every elementary would be 3.9 million.
Okay.
Can I change the
You can amend
motion?
your amendment.
Okay, so I'll amend the motion to say a full-time mental health professional,
provider or
professional at every school at 3.9 million. And then I'd like to hear what other board members have to say about that.
And Madam President, we have that defined. It could be counselors, social workers, school psychologists, things like that.
Okay. And I'll second that for a point of discussion. Ms. Hildy.
I appreciate the clarification on the range of it. Again, this is just a placeholder.
Yes.
It's not that we're getting this money to spend, and I hope that we'll continue to communicate to the public that these numbers are not what we're spending each year, and that's a big misconception that goes around. Oh, this is the full number. You're getting all this money, and but this number is not what we're spending. It's just a big chunk of it. It's just saying here's some needs we have. And if you happen to give them to us, we have to have a spot in our budget for it. I know there's a lot of support at the state level for mental health, bipartisan support. So I'm fine having a wedge for it as long as we just continue to communicate what is our budget and what do we actually spend.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this amendment, Mr. Holloman?
I would sort of like to wait for amendments until 2 weeks from now, partly just because there may be a handful of them, and unfortunately they all balance against each other. If it were a case where we could really consider something in isolation and it didn't have an impact on anything else, it'd be one thing, but opens the door to a bunch of them. And the question is, do we accept all of them? Do we go back and remove some if we approve them because an idea comes up in 2 weeks that we like better? I think last time we did this, we had the amendments on paper. We had what was going to be presented, and we could look at it in advance of the start of the meeting to kind of decide what our priorities are. And that's the difficult thing. If you consider your priorities one at a time, they're all priorities, and that's a difficult thing to do. But I'm going to pose that just as a request or observation from my point.
So I would say that this is a priority of the board. We put it in our guide rules, and that is something we have discussed, and it actually doesn't affect our budget. It's just putting it in that wedge so that if we did get the money, we'd have some place to put it. So, I mean, I've heard from the board members that one of our priorities was counselors, and again, it's about asking for what we need, not what we're going to spend. I mean, we don't even know we're going to get what we're proposing our budget on as it is now. This is kind of, I want to say, a pie in the sky, or however that saying goes, but hopefully letting our community and letting our legislators know that these are things that are important to run our school district, and that it doesn't impact the budget so much as it makes a statement. Ms. Hildy.
And Member Marset brought up an excellent point that in other districts we know what we are going to be allocated prior to making a budget. So this process continues to be a duplicative, right? We're going to do this, and then we're going to find out what we get, and then we have to revise it based on whatever we get. In districts all across the country, you get your budget first. You get your allocation first. You know exactly what you're going to have, and you build your budget off of that. We've been operating under this for decades, and that's why we're at this position. If you tell people to work within your budget, tell them what the budget is. So that's something I hope I think our legislators are starting to hear that, the importance of funding education early so that we know exactly what we're working with.
Madam President, just an interesting fact, the last time that we had forward funding and we knew 3 years in advance was when Sarah Palin was governor. Yeah, so that's a long time ago. That's when we had the increases.
Ms. Bellamy?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the motion on the floor is it's really based on our upcoming. We have not adopted our strategic plan yet. I mean that's part of our upcoming plan. The budget that's before us is the budget that we gave the administration guidelines, parameters, whatever you want to call it, to bring before us to protect the classroom, protect services, and I guess I want to say the same thing that Andy said. I'm just not comfortable doing this way tonight, I guess. Part of that is because it's like 1 o'clock here, but the other part is I just think that we need to this should have been our opportunity to really ask questions about the budget, kind of discuss what was important to each one of us, maybe request more information, but to start amending on the first reading is a little concerning to me. So I will be voting against the motion at this point, not because it's not important, but because I think we're just getting a little sideways. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Michaelis?
So having gone through this process, I think I'm coming up on my 5th year. One of the most frustrating things, and it happens with a lot of, our processes, be it the bond or the CIP, where you have a first reading and a second reading. And at the second reading, multiple changes of a significant magnitude get made that people don't have time to weigh in. So if we are serious about saying we're not going to even entertain changes tonight, we will only entertain them in 2 weeks, then I'm going to say we don't vote on it in 2 weeks. We schedule a special meeting for a week later. People have to have an opportunity to review any substantive changes that we are proposing. And when we make changes at a board meeting with no notice, to our community, that is not fair. And that was part of the purpose in trying to do some of these things in a $4 million wedge, that's mostly symbolic, is not really, to me, an issue right now. So we either need to take a really good hard look at, what we're doing and how we do it. But if we're going to make substantive changes in 2 weeks because that's where people feel better, then I'm going to say delay that vote another week.
Mrs. Mitchell?
I have to say, I do think in terms of public process that, yes, we published the budget yesterday, but the public hasn't really had a chance to process it. And I do agree that I don't think we can make changes in 2 weeks and vote on the same day. I think people need to have an opportunity to weigh in. So I would agree with that.
So the budget has to be presented to the municipality on March 6th. Second. Okay, second. March 2nd. If what you are proposing is that, that's what I was hoping this meeting, that we had, met with finance, we had gone over the budget individually, that if members had amendments or something they wanted to address, that hopefully they would do it in this meeting. But if the board wants to, well, first of all, we need to address this amendment. After we address this amendment, then we'll further discussion on everything else. But, so at this time, if there's no other discussion on the amendment that's on the floor.
I have discussion.
Yes.
I haven't spoke on this particular amendment.
Okay, well, certainly.
I would love to have a counselor, a mental health individual at every one of our elementary schools. As you know, I've fought trying to get one in, or even part-time, into all the middle schools. But at some point, adding all these wedges, if you ask for everything, then nothing's a priority anymore. And my priority remains class size. so that as much as I think it would be wonderful to have these counselors, I'm just opposing it on other priorities. And I don't think it rises to the same priority as trying to hold down our class sizes.
Except our class sizes are on there, and last year we included pre-K. And I don't know, maybe I've been in limbo land, but the discussion I've heard from this board consistently is the need for counselors and to meet the needs of our students. And the fact that we have one counselor for 900 elementary students and some schools have no counselors is definitely a need. So that is my reasoning for putting this forward tonight. And I'm going to let anybody else, if they want to weigh in on that, that's fine. If not, I'm going to call a vote. Okay, board members, please vote.
But
oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'll try to be really brief here. In this budget before us, there's tens of millions of dollars to hold down class size as a wedge.
Right.
In other words, not real money, but
Right.
just a request for additional money. And my point is, what message are we selling to policymakers if we also add another wedge? How do they know which one's more important to us?
Ms. Mitchell?
Well, I guess I would have a hard time saying which one is more important to me, because class size is very important. That is where the learning happens, is in the classroom. And yet, if we had more mental health professionals in the schools, we would provide a way for teachers to provide some more support to the students that have who are at risk, have extreme behavioral issues, and it would help them get back to, teaching in their classroom and not having to do that all on their own. And at the end of the day, the legislature, unless they give us a grant, which I guess they could do, but if they're going to provide us with additional funding, then I would hope that they would rely on the district to put it toward the greatest need that we see fit. And so if they said, okay, we hear you, that there was a $19.3 million budget gap this year, you had to make really, really painful cuts, we're going to give you, we're going to make you whole again on that, and we're going to add an extra 10 or 20 million so that you can address some of these really urgent needs that we know you have. I would hope that they would then say, you guys figure out exactly where it goes, because what is the wedge for class size?
68 million.
68 million. I would love it if they dumped 68 million into our laps. I would not. I don't want to call this pie in the sky. I'd like to call it our optimal budget. It's probably unrealistic to think that they're going to give us the amount we actually need to get down to the class sizes that we know are most effective. So my hope would be that if they are, they seem to be very focused on children and our students and early childhood this session. So, maybe there is a possibility we will get some extra money. And I hope that they would give the local districts the control, the autonomy to determine where we think the greatest need is. Whether it's, if it's $30 million, then maybe the impact on class size is going to be minimal, and we decide it really is better spent with mental health professionals. I don't know the answer to that question, but I would hope that they would turn to the district and ask us, or let us have the, since we're closest to our students, figure that out.
Ms. Hildy?
And just be like, there's no legislator who's going to see our budget and say, wow, they want mental health, I'm going to give them this that's not what this budget does. It leaves a wedge. It's going to be the legislative priorities that the communications committee created, talking to legislators, and there's a lobbyist down there, Dr. Bishop, and her wonderful relationship she's built, and building trust and advocacy work for all of our students. This is a wedge that says, here's where you can plug it in. So I think that's good, because then people who want to know. But this is not really doing anything substantive. It's just leaving a hole if somebody wants to plug it in.
All right, if there's no other comments, board members, please vote. And that motion passes with 4 yeas and 3 nays. Ms. Hildy.
And then to the underlying motion to move it to second reading.
Yes.
Just because somebody might bring an amendment next week, we don't have to even second those, right? Those are choice we can make that we've given direction and this is the budget we have. But we can, if it's not a substantive change, we can vote to approve the budget in 2 weeks. So this isn't different from the regular process. Instead of non-action, we made it action tonight, but it's just the regular process. And in 2 weeks we can leave here, hopefully not 5 minutes to midnight like last year. It's really hard to find a babysitter for that late. But we can find, we can leave here with a budget next week. If somebody has an amendment, I'd hope you'd share that early.
Just a point of clarification, this will change the spending authority?
Mhm.
And so
Well, the upper limit, yes.
So
Yeah. Mr. Donnelly?
Thank you, Madam President. I think the folks that came here and talked about Ignite, I think they deserve a discussion of that. And so to facilitate that, I would move to discontinue the middle school model and restore $2.6 million to the Ignite program.
Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Donnelly, I don't hear a second to your amendment. So I think with what Ms. Hildy has said, based on our next school board meeting where this is on on action, if there are no amendments that impact or that more members don't feel like there needs to be an extended period for the public to comment on, that instead of making that motion tonight, I think we should wait and see what comes out of our next meeting, and that motion can be made at our next meeting if we feel that we need to have a special meeting to approve the budget. What do other board members think? Okay. Yes, Mr. Donnelly.
Yeah, I think if there's substantive amendments to the budget, it would be appropriate to hold it over and allow public comment. I agree with Member Vacalis' observations about that. And then to have the public a chance to see the final product and then to do a final vote on it.
And we could do that at the next meeting.
If
Yeah.
you're asking me my opinion, that's
Yeah,
my opinion.
no, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Well, we still have several things to go through. So we're going to, well, we don't have that. We need to, do you want to make the motion?
There is a motion out there that's seconded to move it to the second reading.
Oh,
Do we need to do that? No?
Nobody seconded it.
Oh, we don't need to?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It'll be on the agenda again.
Yeah.
Great, we're not voting on it tonight. It'll be on the agenda next week.
Madam President, the next time, at least the change that was made today in that, wedge,
Right.
the upper limit will be adjusted, and you'll see that on the next one. That's how it will change
Okay.
when you see it again, similar to when you give other feedback.
Right. Ms. Hildy?
I mean, just procedurally, like, we did make the motion, so do we move it to the next meeting?
Would you like to remove your motion? Till next meeting? Okay, yeah.
All right, I moved to table it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Just wants to be right.
Did you get that, Ms. Mitchell? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So you understand what we're, okay. We're moving to table it to the next. Yes. Are there any objections to moving that forward? Okay. To tabling the yes. Is there any rejections? Okay, thank you. Yep. Oh, it's all non-action. Oh, okay. Okay, are there any non-action items that board members would like to pull? Yes, Ms. Hildy.
I'd like to pull ASD memorandum number 086.
Okay. Are there any other non-action that board member would like to pull? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Hildy, if you could speak to your memorandum.
Thank you. We had this come up in the governance committee, and we had multiple board members there. There was considerable discussion, 40 minutes of the meeting, on whether we should indicate the names of individuals on the positions for the superintendent's organizational chart. The committee voted to move it forward as is, but there was significant disagreement that the names are necessary. So I would like to move it back to governance, or I can just say I'll plan to move to amend it next week, whatever you think is more efficient.
Well, I think at this point, I hate moving things back to governance. We need to move it forward and vote on it, and either put it forward or not put it forward. But
Okay.
let's just.
So next week I'll plan to amend it to remove the listing the names of the individual, just as a heads up.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. All right. At this time, are there any requests for information from the board? Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. I read the reports regarding the, well, if I could get the exact name of the committee, the math curriculum review committees, and I was wondering if at what point there would be public participation in that process, because the board policy 6141, curriculum development and evaluation. It said, well, actually, it's the next policy. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's 6141. It says that the superintendent or designee shall develop a process for planning, implementing, and evaluating curriculum, which shall include the participation of teachers, administrators, students, and parents/guardians. And the report didn't identify any students or parents/guardians, and they may be on some committee at this time, but it just wasn't in the report, and I was just wondering what the status of that was.
Madam President, I can, through you, answer Member Donnelly's question. I've asked Dr. Knutson to come forward and share some insights into the question.
Yeah. So through President Marset to Member Donnelly, there were, I think, 4 to 5 community nights and parent nights where people could come out and view the materials and provide feedback on what works, what didn't work, strengths and weaknesses that they saw. There were examples of parent resources electronically that was put out for that. I can get you those dates and that information of when that happened.
Yes, Mr. Donnelly.
So the plan is not to have any members of the public actually have a vote in this committee process?
That is not part of the process, no.
Well, it could be, though. We have members of the public voting on all kinds of advisory committees. It may not be the choice to do it in this particular case, but it could be part of the process.
It could be. It has not been part of the district process in curriculum reviews, absolutely.
Actually, back in the 1980s, it was, because I was on the Social Studies Curricular Advisory Committee in the mid-1980s, prior to my even having any kids, and we got to vote on recommendations for adoption, and yeah.
So that was before my time, so yeah. I would have been a student voting at that time.
So I think given where we are, we do open it up for public comments and for the public to view that. I mean, even when my kids were going to school, there was that time for parents and community members to come in and review the new curriculum and give feedback on it. That's all taken into consideration when the final product is brought before the school board. And, if that's something we want to change, then we need to look at policy. But at this time, I think we have proceeded as expected, and you will be bringing, I'm assuming, a report and recommendation to the board.
Correct. And through the public process, we went through MECAC and all the different committees that represent the community to publicize and let them know about the parent nights as well as the student advisory board. So it was communicated through all those groups as well as through the district ASD Connect that goes out to all families. And so that's the process we used.
And being on those committees, I know that I have looked at many books before I was on the school board that was brought to our committee meetings for us to review and get information on. So I did appreciate that. Anything else, Mr. Donnelly?
Thank you very much, Madam President. I did have one additional question about the process. So 5 of our somewhat 70, I think, close to elementary schools use an alternative form of curriculum called Saxon Math. And those 5 schools are all in the top 10 scoring schools on math achievement scores. I'm just wondering why the teams that were put together to do the math review advisory has something like, I don't know, over 30 different teachers involved, but not a single one of those is from a Saxon Math school. And I was just why there wasn't even one individual included that's teaching Saxon Math now.
So the process was in opening up, it was an application process for people to apply to be on the committee. And so different people from different schools applied, so folks from those schools had the opportunity to apply and participate on the committee.
Do we know, as a follow-up, if any did?
I don't know. I would have to follow up on that, and I could get that information back to you.
Ms. Hildy?
I asked that specific question and received excellent briefing on it. Almost everyone who applied was allowed to be on it, unless there was some significant, maybe they were on a improvement plan or something and they didn't get maybe put on it, but very liberal allowance of whoever wanted to be on it.
Okay. So it is an application process that is out there that anybody can apply to be part of that committee.
Correct. Yeah. As well as field testing if they wanted to, whatever the programs that were being reviewed, they could field test.
All right. Any further questions, Mr. Donnelly? Thank you. Okay, is there any other request for information from school board members? Mr. Donnelly? Oh, I mean, Mr. Holloman, sorry.
We need to put the name tags around so
know.
that you can see them. This is one of those, I'm not sure how big of a thing I'm asking so the administration can brace itself. There's been in the news lately discussion about the lack of any kind of defined benefit for our TERS and PERS, TERS 3, PERS 4 employees. And it's been said that we have the ability, the school district has the ability to enter into Social Security individually if they decided to, and possibly make this available on a case-by-case basis. I'm not sure how much of this is true, but, and I'm not asking for a report in 2 weeks. I don't know how you begin to find something like that out, but I do think we're going to be asked, and that members of our workforce are going to ask, and there's not a good way for an individual to answer this question on their own. So I would ask the administration over the next month or two to investigate if it's even a possibility and to what degree we can wade into it without having to jump in the pool and go over our head completely, what our options would be and what that would look like.
Ms. Hildy?
And just as a reminder for RFI, the next step would be Dr. Bishop coming back and saying, this is like an hour worth of work, or this is a 40-hour, or maybe it's just a 5-minute, she comes back with the answer. But just so we know if it's going to be more work, we'll need to vote on it.
Well, the next step is we do need a second.
Did you say we needed a second?
Yes. Mhm.
Well, then I would second.
Okay. Whoever. Ms. Michaelis.
If this is something that's going to move forward to, get information, I'd also like to, have the fiscal impact attached to it.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And just as a point of process, I don't think we need a second to have an RFI. Any board member can submit an RFI at any time, and Katie lists it, and then at this meeting, we go through it and we say, is this something we want more information on? And then we vote on that. But you could have 10 questions and put them on here, and we could say, we don't want more information on it. Or maybe Dr. Bishop just answers your question really quickly. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Well, I thought we needed a second because before they even looked into it to see how much time it would be on it, I want to know that there's another school board member interested in getting that information. So it's my understanding that we do need a second. So, yeah. All right. All right. So moving forward.
I've got another one.
Oh, okay. No, you're only allowed one.
Because the administration just looks too relaxed.
Okay.
This one I think is going to be much more simple, but an update on the rate at which we're able to fill subs through SubFinder and how often they don't get filled and buildings have to deal with some kind of a secondary plan. Thank you.
Right. Do we have a second on that? Okay. And we have a second with Ms. Mitchell. Okay, great. Any others? Okay. So this is the time where we, our final process for public testimony, non-agenda and non-action items to be continued if there's anyone that wants to testify on non-agenda or non-action items. Okay, please come forward. And if you could state your name and spell it.
Val Ballerud, V-A-L, B as in boy, A-A-L-E-R-U-D.
Thank you.
I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank the board. You have entertained a lot of really heavy discussion tonight, and you have a lot of really difficult decisions ahead of you, the weight of which I do not envy, but I feel. And I also feel how important those decisions are to you. I have tried to attend on a fairly regular basis, and the thoughtful commentary tonight just really speaks to me as not only an educator in the district, but as a parent of 3 ASD students. So I wanted to thank you for that. My original reason for coming up, though, was that I wanted to send a couple of shout outs tonight to the district. I've spent the last month doing an administrative internship at West High School, and I loved every minute of it. The administrative staff was fantastic, working with Sven and Jen Grigorchik, and I probably learned at an accelerated level, things that would have taken me several years to see at Eagle River, where I teach. I got to see over the span of a month, and the exposure to their students, the culture, just really resonated with me. So I was super thankful for that. Second shout out goes to you as well as everyone else working in the district to support the DDF, the Drama, Debate, and Forensics program. We'll be traveling to Juneau in 2 weeks, and for my students, for some of them, this will be the furthest they've traveled from Anchorage, and they are so pumped to enjoy this experience. So I just want to thank you for everything you've done to support them now and in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry.
But Mr.
Sure.
Donnelly, we're not supposed to.
know. I just wanted to know if they still do Senate simulation.
So Congress, unfortunately, if I can, Congress unfortunately was removed about 2 years ago. They do still have an event at nationals, though. So from time to time, when I have students go, that is an option, at least at that level. We do still entertain 3 different types of debate, and I will be sending 7 debate teams out of my team of 15. So the skills that they're learning through public speaking that they're engaged in is just a skill set that they can use for life. I like to kind of joke with them that not everybody, unfortunately, is going to play in the NBA or the NFL, but you're all going to have to talk to somebody, regardless of what job you do. So it's one of the most worthwhile things that I feel I've been involved in throughout my educational process. So thanks again for supporting that.
No, thank you for all you do. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on non-action or non-agenda items? All right, seeing none, this is the point where school board members and administration can make comments or any type of communications you'd like to share. Ms. Michaelis?
Just a reminder to the board, we know that we have these next 2 months are going to be filled with conversations with our community regarding the bonds and, budget over the next couple of weeks, stuff like that. Katie has the Google sign-up sheet to get all of that done and get them all filled in. I know I need to go out and fill out all of mine. Okay, and the bond flyers.
Yep.
But one of the things I just wanted to say was, I love when people come and give their public testimony, whether it's, good or bad, whatever it is. But I also want to just remind board members when they're out talking to their community councils and out in the public that this is the time right now where it isn't just about talking to us, it's about talking to our legislators, not just where they live, but, all of our Anchorage legislators. Talk to the people down in Washington as well, because as much as our local and our state, budgets are, tangled up, the feds aren't, having a whole lot of, good things happen, right now either. And so it isn't just about talking to us or us just talking to the community. We need to encourage people to keep talking, to everybody that has an impact on how all of this works. And to the students that spoke tonight, I'm so incredibly proud of them. And that really is, I have watched the folks down in Juneau, they listen to kids. And so to the extent our kids are willing to stand up and, make the same, comments and statements to them, I encourage, just with an open heart that they do. And so that's my thoughts for tonight.
Ms. Mitchell.
I really appreciate that, Member Michaelis. There are opportunities for testimony at the Legislative Information Office here in Anchorage, so maybe we can help promote that because the voice of students is incredibly powerful. And the other thing I want to make sure that we all let people know about is that it is Visit Your Schools Month, as President Marcette mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. And I think when people go and visit their schools and have that tour and hear about all the amazing things that are happening, as well as the challenges, it just gives them more insight and more appreciation for the work that all of our employees are doing, and also just gives them more a better place to talk to our decision makers as well. So hopefully everybody will go to those Visit Our School Days Month. Every Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning, there will be a tour at every single school, and the last Tuesday in the month, there's also an evening tour. I think it's 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. I think 6 p.m. So.
And just on another note, I will be in Juneau starting Friday to talk to those representatives. And so the more people that call in before I get there, or even while I'm there, and say, hey, listen to Miss Marcette, I appreciate your support. The school boards appreciate your support. And, we can only do with what we have. And unfortunately, it's not what we need. We need your voices to help support the school district. There's no other comments or whatever. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? We're adjourned.